You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Lois Lane sucks. Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello.
And we are joined by Jid. What's up, dude?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jid. I'm also Batman's wife on Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to follow me there.
Heck yeah. I'll have all of his links in the description below. So this is a very interesting one. We are discussing a full-on in-depth analysis, as we are known to do. We are discussing Wonder Woman and the Amazons, but particularly Amazons, but I put Wonder Woman in there for search engine optimization. So let us begin. So Britt, would you like to start us off?
Okay, so I guess we had to run this back a little bit because so many people have this perception of Wonder Woman and the Amazons. And you see, especially on Twitter, some people act like they are professors or whatever, and they know everything. They know mythology and also knowing DC, and just all their information is screwed. And the way that they talk about Wonder Woman or the Amazons is so degrading, and it's just reducing them to how they think of them as the barbaric women, and they're not. From their inception and Wonder Woman's 2, it's supposed to be something about female empowerment. And especially me as a female reader, as a female myself, it's kind of like you don't know what a woman goes through. And the way that or Wonder Woman, she is supposed to represent that, basically coming out of the trenches of all the things that, men try to put women in the kitchen, things like that. And she is supposed to be of equality, and I can do the work just as a man can do, maybe not all of it, but I can do some of it, or I can do, just give me respect and give me a chance or something like that. But how DC just writes off Wonder Woman and her lore is just so, it's unnecessary, and it's kind of like very contradictory, because you want her to be part of the Trinity with Batman and Superman and say how she's important for promotional purposes.
Really?
But when you write her, it's like she's purposely put in the background. And even with Mark Waid, he the fact that he said he doesn't get her, and it's kind of like you've been writing these characters for decades,
and you've written Wonder Woman before. Well,
yeah. And so for you to say that I don't get her, is it that you don't get the fact of her concept as because you don't agree with it, of course, as a man? Or is it that and you're purposely not trying to get her? Or is that you're not trying to just really understand the importance as a woman, in a creative mind?
Yeah. I mean, see, here's the thing, and Britt, you bring up a good point, and then I'll get to Jid, but the Amazons in Wonder Woman it's like the biggest layup when it comes to female empowerment, because you essentially have the 300 Spartans, but it's all female. You have the all-female Spartans, and justifiably so, they are badasses. I mean, we saw in like the Wonder Woman movie when they show them all training, they're jumping off stuff, fighting with swords, but it's one of the coolest concepts in DC, and they have this wellspring of empowering characters, but they don't push it enough. That's the problem. DC has these concepts already pre-baked into their lore, but they don't use it. If you use it, guess what? You can say, hey, we're all for female empowerment. You know why? We promote this tribe of badass women that can arguably, some of them fight and defeat Superman. At least one of them can. I know that for sure. But anyway, so Jid, what do you think about the way DC handles Wonder Woman and the Amazons?
I was gonna mention about Mark
Yeah,
Waid. I think
go
it's
ahead.
just him being afraid too of writing Wonder Woman because of the backlash he could potentially receive from writing her.
Yeah.
Because it's happened so many times with writers where they receive so much backlash, fans, especially nowadays on Twitter, where you get so much death threats for simply having a different mindset of Wonder Woman, right?
Mhm.
So it's definitely something to do with that. And he's just very comfortable writing Superman in itself, which is something that writers always struggle with. They always struggle to always branch out to different characters, and they're always like glued to one character, which just happens a lot with Mark Waid. And it's escaping my mind right now, but I'm talking about, like Frank Miller,
Tom King, who
yes,
writes
Tom
everyone like
King.
Batman.
So about that, and then how DC's mistreatment of Wonder Woman, again, it just goes down to how less iconic her character or her villains are in contrast to Batman and Superman. Also because she's a woman, her stories are underrepresented in the media, in comics, even in comic sales, right?
Yeah, 100%. So continuing on, so we're going to talk about this. So like we said before, so we have so they're undervalued. That is objectively true there. So they're undervalued. Then you also have the injustice perception of the Amazons, which is they're just a bunch of Xenas that exist for the bloodthirsty purpose of killing people. And I'm like, that's not what they're used for. Yes, they're for some reason with DC, and comic book fans, they apparently think that just because you're a warrior does not mean you can promote peace. And I'm like, objectively, that's false, because they're just prepared. They do peace, but they also have the warrior part, because peace is not always going to be possible. And then you have the obvious, or is overly sexualized by fans, by DC, and a certain DC director. We'll get into that when we get to the movies, but it's one of those things where when I see about how people talk about Wonder Woman, it's like, for one thing, it's kind of stereotypical how 99% of the discourse about Wonder Woman is, who is she dating? I'm like, what?
Yeah, because that's all a woman, especially in comics or just in any media of a movie or something like that. The woman is portrayed as just the love interest. And when you have or if you're watching the romance movies, reading a romance novel, the woman is either she's chasing a man, dating someone. It is just about her love life. It's not about her independence as a woman, as a businesswoman, as an entrepreneur or something like that. Is always surrounded by her love life. And with Diana, she represents so much more than that. She is love, in a sense of not just romantic love, but love for children, love for everyone, for um, the elderly, the less fortunate, just for the whole world and culture, and embracing, you know, what we are supposed to love just as human beings. And because so many fanboys, they look at these female characters as just that, as like these sex objects. And especially, and we've talked about this, how some people, they blur the lines of reality and fiction, and they want to live vicariously through these characters, and they fantasize about them and wanting to you know, we see on Twitter how some people kind of, talk about that kind of stuff. And there's a line that you just can't cross with that. And some female characters, you can have fun and everything like that, but they go too far.
Yeah.
And with Wonder Woman, especially because the whole she's wearing a bathing suit and, and her boots or something like that, And it's kind of like that's how you know the difference between being sexualized and sexual, liberation. And what that means is you're free. You have this freedom of your confidence in you're confident in yourself, you're confident in your sexuality, you're confident in just being who you are, your body, expressing yourself. But of course, fanboys, they just think of the sexual part, and that's also, a strike against Wonder Woman because it feels like now she has to be covered up. She has to wear pants. She has to be this barbaric type, drawn in a way that's unattractive a little bit to gear, you know, those thoughts away from some of the fanboys. I mean, even her UN, the fact that she was the ambassador for what, like a week, and then they swiped it away because the women of the UN felt like she was just a character that's, half dressed or whatever like that.
Yeah,
And they
it was
did
the one in the
not.
bathing suit, which I'm like, mythologically, the Amazons wore a lot less than what Diana wears. So that's the
Right.
first thing we're talking
So
about here.
so even still, in reality, even some women, they have an issue with their own selves and self-esteem issues, and they project that on Diana too, of not liking her, and to where you have writers like Christopher Priest or even female writers. I think it was Sensation Comics or something like that. But Lois, she is always used to kind of like tear down Diana at some point.
Well,
To
she's used to
say,
tear down everyone in DC. That's
well,
kind of
yeah,
her purpose.
but in Superman Lost, it
Mm-hmm.
was talking about Diana's bathing suit. And but the thing is, Christopher Priest has already said that about himself in one of his blogs. He's like he doesn't like Wonder Woman because of, and he can't take her seriously because of her tiara and stuff like that. So it's the writers that have their own issues and they use these characters to project. And it's so
Or it's like Tom
aggressive.
King when he said that he found Wonder Woman to be really intimidating. And I'm like, well, first off, you wrote Batman for many years. So it's not like you know the pressure that comes from writing a major character, arguably the most major character in all of DC. So first off, I'm not buying that. But the second part is like even with Tomasi when he said, "Oh yeah, Wonder Woman needs to be put on a pedestal." I'm like, well, yeah, in a book called Superman and Wonder Woman, you tell me the co-lead has to be put on a pedestal with the lead? That's kind of the way comic books work, bro.
Okay. So what do you think, Jid?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to mention that Wonder Woman, she's a representation of feminism of her time. Yeah. She's been around since World War II. During World War II, women were in the work field and men were in the war. That is why Diana, she became a warrior of peace during the 40s. But then obviously when, policies changed, we had the lavender scare in the 50s and 60s. We've reverted back to conservatism in the 60s. And that's when we got the Silver Age, when we got the very tragic, the romance, the comedy romance in the comics where Wonder Woman, she's pining over Steve Trevor, who she wants him to notice Diana Prince, who's this nurse or this assistant for him. And then, when we went back into the 80s and 70s when we had the sexual revolution, when the Wonder Woman was remodernized again, when she got her powers back during post-crisis, during the whole 80s movement with third wave feminism, that is when Wonder Woman's stories heightened, increased with George Perez. You see now, because of the post-Me Too movement, Wonder Woman's outfit had to change as well. She now has the skirt instead of the whole swimsuit, which I personally am a fan of both. I don't have a preference.
Either way, see, I don't care if she has the swimsuit or the armor. I kind of prefer the armor, but I'm fine with either way. Just don't write it like she's actually wearing a thin piece of like fabric.
Exactly. And then my other point was about fanboys in general, because
Yeah.
it's the fanboys screaming about comic accuracy on Twitter, but they fail to acknowledge how that costume, it can be intimidating for women to wear that on Hollywood, because the over sexualization by cameras, by directors, by behind the scenes, and no one knows about this. In Hollywood, it's very hush hush. It's just recently that women have been able to speak out about what they faced with whether big sexual harassment on behind the scenes. It's the first time they're able to speak about that. And living in a Me Too world, we cannot let our fantasy characters and their costumes dictate women's autonomy in Hollywood. That is my biggest concern. I'd rather have the actress wear pants if she's comfortable with. Wear pants. I don't care. Just put Wonder Woman's stories out there. I do not care about what she looks like at all.
Plus, she's had pants before in the comics, so it's not like you're just taking that out of left field. Plus, also, here's the thing, and this gets back to my issue with the whole comic accurate argument, is that it because a lot of stuff in the comics is not going to translate well. Like I got news for you. You know what's the Superman villain that I doubt is ever going to show up? It's Mexel Pitlick. Because that character is not going to... Yes, you can make him look good with CGI, but concept perspective, that's not going to translate well to an audience. When you deal with the swimsuit, first off, you can't make the swimsuit look good, but also not like reveal too much if you catch my... Because you make it too thin, it's going to look, to Jid's point, very sexualized. You make it too thick, she's not going to be able to move. So really, I think that's part of the reason why movie Wonder Woman, chances are, will have armor, because it's like that's the easiest way to like pad it out. And it's just, the comic accurate crowd is also the biggest hypocrites I've ever seen, because they're pointing to the James Gunn Superman suit like this is the most comic accurate Superman suit, and I'm like, that's not accurate to the new 52, Kingdom Come, or like any version of Superman. So, to which comics are you referring?
They're only saying that it's comic accurate because it's bright and it has underwear. That's pretty much it. And yes, he is using the aesthetic of what he tried to do is combine every era of Superman. That's basically what this is. And but at the same time, I mean, it is very comic booky, in a very campy way, and I guess that is what he's going for. But the fanboys, and especially on Twitter, they overhype. They worry about shipping, of course, and they worry about appearance more than the actual story. And this is the problem DC has in general, because so many stories that um are very good. And that is the thing about Wonder Woman. She has some very powerful stories, some very
Yeah.
entertaining stories. But because fanboys just want that I would say her to look a certain way, or a certain character within the book or something like that, they don't take heed to the story. And this is the thing about Wonder Woman, and why we'll get to that, but why I don't really trust James Gunn, because he is more so
There's a lot of reasons not to trust James Gunn with Wonder Woman,
yeah.
Britt.
But it's more so of fanboys having this obsession with aesthetic and status quo that might not work anymore, and instead of a good story to really keep these characters going. For
Yeah.
so long, yeah, these characters have been in existence for a century and everything like that, whatever. But at the same time, like we talked about last week with Superman and the week before, was that they are just icons. They are just known for their symbol on merchandise, but their actual story, no one is interested in. And what Sam said about Wonder Woman, in a sense of her, that she doesn't have any, stories, or that her role gallery isn't
Largely
known.
known because yes, she has well-known stories, but none that like if you walk down on the street and you say like, "Hey, remember when Bane broke Batman's back?" They're gonna chances are they're gonna be able to tell me about that one, but they don't really have that for Wonder Woman, and that gets to my point. DC does not promote her, but go on, Britt.
Right. The only story really that they care for is Max Lord, and it's like he's not even a Wonder Woman villain,
No,
and for you to only take it that, oh, she's part of the Trinity, she's the one that kills because you don't know the story that she made the decision to kill Max Lord because she had no other choice. The reason why, even being a goddess of war, within at least what Charles tried to how he wanted to present her being the goddess of war was that Diana understanding war, and at the same time she wanted to end it, and essentially in war to be the goddess of peace.
yeah,
And that is the thing, and that is what her being a warrior of peace, that is what that means. And just as a social justice warrior too, you're a warrior fighting. A warrior is nothing but a person who fights. And what are you fighting for? You're fighting for justice. What are you doing? You're fighting for peace. So with people kind of taking the warrior thing too literally, I'm kind of like, if you're a writer and you are like being that uncreative or creatively bankrupt and taking that warrior aspect in such a literal term of that she has to have the sword, that she has to snap necks or something like that, you aren't going to get the character.
yeah, you're
and
not.
and
Well,
and especially,
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, especially as a woman, again, you have so many male writers and female writers, I'm not gonna say that, oh, if she has a female writer then it's gonna get better, because no, some female writers don't get the character either. But
And
at the same
arguably,
time,
her most iconic run was written by a man. So
right. So I'm not gonna say that, you know, just generalize that. But at the same time, if you're going to have males, mostly write this character, get someone who is actually willing to sit down and understand not only Wonder Woman, but understanding a woman and understanding also the difference between the mythological Amazons and DC Amazons.
because fun fact, I learned this through my research recently. Do you know that the mythologically accurate Amazons were not bi or lesbians at all? I'm sure. Well, to be clear, I'm sure some were, but majority, no, they weren't. That's it's really interesting how the whole mythological accurate like thing only applies when something they like when they got rid of the new 52 thing, but the Amazons capturing and R wording men, which I didn't like, just to be clear. But they're like, okay, it took that one away. But then when they perceive the Amazons to all be bi, they were, or like Diana sleeping with her aunts or something like that, they're like, well, that's mythologically accurate to Greece. And I'm like, what? Wait, you just contradicted yourself. So what are you talking about here?
Right. And also, one more thing before you
Yeah.
transition, the quote from Marston. I think, well, both of them. And basically, to sum them up, don't have to read them all, but the fact of women, how it's supposed to be about, these characters were supposed to be inspiration for children, first of all. And so the way that it has transitioned more to be like for adults acting like children, um, that is pretty much what's taken away the magic of these characters and the purpose of these characters. And, you know, Marston, he had his ways, um, but his message for Wonder Woman being, the way that he says that women, they don't want to be seen as weak. we don't. We want to, be independent. We want to, but at the same time, vulnerable. And, you know, and like I said, it's all about respect. It's all about taking issues seriously. And because, men within the comic industry and the DC documentary said
Mhm.
this, that DC is basically a boys, boys club.
Mhm.
So I think Jeanette Kahn,
Mhm.
she was not taken serious as an editor. She was basically, bullied in a way because of being a woman, and she had to basically stand her ground. And for you to have to do that as a woman, in a workplace, and it's still happening to this present day, we as a society, you know, just do not learn the lessons. So if we already have this problem within reality, I mean, can we expect them to change for fictional purposes? No. But if we, as fans that I guess have a little bit more of a clear view and a respectable view of these characters, and, a little bit more objective, then voicing this how we are, maybe it can, start something to be a little bit better. Because again, these characters are about to go to public domain too. So you have an even bigger fight, because once Wonder Woman becomes public domain, you guarantee that the character is going to be in a much, worse, probably, position
I'm
than she
sure
is now.
DC is prepping for that and like have their hand on the on the send button of the renew button. So they're not going to be public domain for long.
I hope not.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden Wonder Woman's going to show up in a lot of explicit sites. Let me put it to you that way. But what do you think,
Exactly.
Jin?
I was gonna mention about the costume. They keep referencing Linda Carter. Linda Carter costume was comic accurate, this and that. But if you go on, like Divine Art, if you go on these random subsites, you'll always see like Linda Carter in bondage, Linda Carter in this, Linda Carter in Perel, and all those
Mm-hmm.
fetishy websites. So it's kind of like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
they don't realize that there's also the Drusilla actress who is Wonder Girl. She didn't like to be a part of that show because of how sexualized it was and that show, and people don't recognize that at all. And
Yeah.
again, with if you don't have enough spaces for women in comics when it comes to writing, editing, the being marketing, what does that say about how you treat your fictional characters? Again, it's if you don't fix the problem, as if you're not employing more women, are you going to employ more fictional characters? No.
Fun fact. So, speaking of the costume, do you guys remember that red and gold full body suit she wore in the new 52 briefly?
Yes, I
So,
think it's in the picture here. The
yeah.
20 right there.
Yeah, so I was talking to David Bench about it at a con because I brought my trade of that to sign because I think it's an underrated suit. I enjoy it. But anyway, so I asked him, what was the inception behind that? And he goes, DC came to me. And this is to the best of my to my memory. If I see him again, I'll be sure to ask him about this. DC came to him and basically wanted to like give her a more body positive suit without the bathing suit. So it's kind of funny as he said, "Okay, I drew this up." They implemented it. Then with you know what's kind of funny? We talk about DC being very like vindictive. They were a little vindictive when they did that because we read the comic. It's like Wonder Woman saying it's time for a more adult costume. So the time for childish things is gone. And I'm like, oh wow. But anyway, the fans threw such a fit, it was gone in 4 issues.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
the
I
I would
don't
say that
mind it, but I get why people were upset.
the shoulder pads were way too much. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she looked like a linebacker. Um, and the Wolverine like blades,
Mm-hmm.
it was unnecessary. If
Mm-hmm.
you would have, you know, cut that off, um, it's pretty okay, temporary or whatever. The pants, like we said, you want for live action, you want the actress to be comfortable. And of course, fanboys want the comic accuracy, and especially even their fan castings, they want a more of like a model than a woman that can really act as Diana. Um, you know, I see some of the castings are very much, you just looked up an Instagram model or whatever, and she has like no type of acting experience whatsoever. She probably doesn't even know who
That's what
Wonder
fan
Woman is.
casting always does.
Yeah, well, I mean, David Cornsweet, even though he has been talking about Superman, he was a fan cast, and now he is Superman. So I'm saying that with the fan
Actually,
casting.
I'm gonna push back on that real quick because it was actually WB was entertaining him to play Superman during the whole unknown of what's gonna happen after the Flash thing.
Really, it's been that long.
He was a WB pick from that long. It's just when Gunn came in, he basically advanced to the next step. So it was they had him in there and also kept Cavill in limbo. But then when when Gunn took over, he was like, I'll just get rid of Cavill and just cast Cornsweet.
Well, okay, now that, so the whole behind the scenes thing of, so what was the casting for? Because they had the candidates or whatever, and it made it seem like he
I'm
was
sure
just
it
a
was
part of
for
that
like it could be it was just for like
PR.
we're kind of doing that, or it was like he was put up by like someone at WB saying, hey, he was considered to replace Cavill, you should have him.
Well, still, it's still the fact that he was still in the pool of a fan cast,
Mm-hmm.
and it really feels like Gunn is going by social like reactions to things.
He even said
And
he sometimes takes that into account. I'm like, wrong idea, dude, because that's how we
yeah,
get another American white Diana. Because here's the thing: say what you want about Gal Gadot's acting abilities. I like the idea of a exotic Wonder Woman with an accent because it doesn't make sense that someone that comes from roughly Greece or the Mediterranean would straight up have an American accent. That does not make sense there.
Now I counter that.
Okay,
Again,
go ahead.
here's why. So, and George Perez's run, when she talks to not Vanessa, Julia in Greek, right? That's like, because that's how they exchange words and stuff. And then Julia taught her English, right? So I always imagined Diana with a sort of American Boston accent because that's where she learned English in Harvard University, right? In her year one story. So that's my headcanon of how she talks. So, and it would make sense why she talks like an American woman in movies and cartoons and animations throughout the years or throughout the decades, right?
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. Okay, that's a valid. Personally, I prefer it if she has the accent because I also think it's like it's a little bit more on the warrior side of her. So that's just my own thing. So moving on. So with the comics, so Wonder Woman is the mother of superheroes. It's not Lois Lane because I know some people like to put Lois Lane as the first lady of comics. It ain't her. It's Diana. And arguably, she is the most abused DC character, and we'll get into that later. Because there's one storyline that I recently read that when I read this, I legit said, I said a few other choice words, but I was like, are you kidding me, DC? We'll get into that later. But it's not. See, here's the thing. She is I disagree that she's a hard character to get because here's a way you could approach Wonder Woman. You know how we had those Clash of the Titans movies that came out with Sam Worthington? Just do that with her because a lot of her stories involves conflict with the Greek gods. Do that for her first movie. They kind of did that with 2017, and that worked out great.
Or I mean, just get who wrote, Blood of Zeus, and because honestly, that is the main thing of understanding not only the Wonder Woman lore as DC, but like I said, you have to understand mythology as well, and the Amazons, and that is the overlapping thing. And you said it, about the Amazons having relations with sailors and stuff like that, or just still these very skilled, independent warrior women, but at the same time, in the way Wonder Woman's world is mostly of peace, and you have to just know how to find the balance of that. And yeah, within comics, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard to get her story. But again, it goes back to how creative are you as a writer? Can you put yourself, if you want to do the self-insertion thing, and even as a man, it doesn't matter the gender, you can still put yourself in a character's position though. And what is this story? What is their main goal? What is the message you want the reader to, get at the very end? The way Tom King,
oh God,
right now, he is implementing and his self-insertion of the CIA,
Steve.
of Steve, but also the Amazons being taken into custody with the axe thing, that's basically.
Which, to be clear, that's a cool idea for a story. Here's the problem with Tom King. He has great ideas for stories. It's just the execution, because that should be a layup, because that's taking what was originally an interesting concept in Amazon's Attack, but is doing it in a better way. But the problem is, it would have been, that story, the Tom King run would have worked better if he had gotten to the point. Because when I was talking to Comic Historian about this, RIP, even he said, he was like, he was like, I'm reading this, and I'm like, yeah, get to the point. Stop with these freaking dream sequences. He puts them in every book.
Right. It is with the storyline, it's a very powerful message, and it should be used for Wonder Woman. But with his idea of, you never see Diana like her emotion, her true emotion with her sisters, and you see bits and pieces, but it's never really like she doesn't show it, I would say, in a very authentic way. um we haven't seen her actually mourn loss of her sisters that the military has killed. We haven't seen, I don't know, a burial or something. Things like that. Her dealing with the families. How are you going to say that the Amazons have developed developed families and stuff in the outside world? That's something new that you just threw into the story, but we never see Diana actually go to those families. And also, yeah, you are mostly trying to, again, you worried about the wrong thing, which is the romantic part of making Steve important. When he is in the military, he is indirectly um helping the military kill her sisters, and you want Diana to romance this soldier.
Well, plus the fact Steve Trevor is a very problematic dude for the people to actually read his books. That's the key part there. And to be clear, I get what he's doing, because what Tom King is trying to do, he's doing what I call nostalgia armor. And basically what that is that he's taking stuff, he's trying to get the nerd points by saying, look what I'm talking about. Look at the different parts of Wonder Woman's history that I'm referencing. And that can't, see, to be clear, you can have fan service moments. It's just if you're doing it in a plot like the Tom King run and executing it like Tom King, it seems way too much like you actually don't know. You're trying to mask crappy writing. That's when I really get against the, oh my gosh, look what I'm doing here.
Here's
Exactly.
the thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I was gonna say, here's the thing with Tom King. He's referencing all the past, like Grail, Silver Swan, the third Silver Swan. He's referencing in the way that's mischaracterizing them because I don't think he's ever really read into Grail or read into Vanessa Capitelis, because why is she having like a romantic feeling towards her and asking
That
Diana?
was my question.
Right.
I'm like, since
Right.
when?
And my other thing is, I feel like people don't really want down to earth stories. Literally, Down to Earth by Greg Rucka in 2003. That's one of my favorite arcs in Wonder Woman's history, because it shows how important she is just to the surface, and how she can, has a book coming out, and how that's enraging people, and how they were outraged by her words in that book. We need more stories like that, where it's more Diana to the people. People have become so obsessed, and writers, fans, they're so obsessed with fighting monsters and demons and power scaling. And I see a lot of Wonder Woman fans, they're mostly obsessed with the Witching Hour storyline. It's because of how powerful she is. And they always have this weird competition in their head that, oh, Wonder Woman should be competing with Jean Grey and she should be competing with Wanda.
No.
It's always like those, I'm sorry, there's always this competition in their head, and they fail to realize Diana's not like that. She is someone who's an agent of peace. She wants to make the world a better place. And people have this obsession with constant fighting and this blood on her face. Blood is pretty cool. Like, I'm not, like, let's not lie, it's pretty cool. But why in every issue is there blood on her face? Can we just get a good, story that's down to earth? I mean, there's one in Tom King's issue, I won't knock him down for this, where she's taking in a child who's suffered from cancer, and she's giving him a better life, and she's making his wishes come true. That's a great issue. I think we need to see more of that in her
problem
stories.
Here's the problem, Jib. So Wonder Woman is currently being pursued by the government, and she goes and visits a kid. You kind of put the target on that kid's family. So if you were doing this pre the run, in other words, pre the whole Amazon Act got like passed, that would be one thing. But he does it in the middle of when there's a manhunt for Wonder Woman. So I'm like, what? Plus the fact the Amazons would not want to murder a kid. So yes, on paper, that issue is great, and I kind of dug it. It's kind of like that one Spider-Man issue when Peter shows up a kid that's like a big fan of Spider-Man. But the problem is like the context around that is like, what is going on? So then we get to the area of of DC where Wonder Woman does not she appears a lot in animation, but she doesn't. But she barely has any solo stuff. And again, when I talked to Sam about this, he said one of the reasons is because, at least from WB's perspective, they don't see her as a worthy and as like a monetarily successful investment. I think personally, if Wonder Woman 1984 had not come out, that would have been a different story, because if we're in a post 2017 Wonder Woman world, yeah, I think they would have invested heavily into Wonder Woman, given her maybe an animated series. It's just the minute that 1984 came out, that like brought her back. Arguably, it brought Wonder Woman back down to her to the prestige that she had pre the Wonder Woman movie. That's why I'm really hoping that Wonder Woman game comes out and is really good, because if that game is good, it can repair the damage that was done by 1984.
Beep, 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 beep. Going back to comics real quick. Okay, so
yeah,
I totally agree with Jid, is that you need more stories, like, even if it is Elseworlds or one shots or something like that, anthologies. You definitely just need those stories that, if you want the blood and stuff and the fighting, sure, whatever, go ahead. But have Elseworlds or something like that that really shows these characters, especially if you want to try to have realism too. Have these characters especially Superman and Wonder Woman, go out with children, with cancer and making their day, making their wishes. Have Wonder Woman or Superman, Clark, I mean, he's a reporter. He is supposed to be writing articles that tick people off. Diana, she is a writer herself. Have her write a book, and especially or as a UN ambassador, she has press conferences or something like that that ticks people off. Um, do things like that. That is what these characters are supposed to represent, and the stories that they need, to really give a message out. And also I would love for a more um a, a cultural, celebration. Like what Jimenez did in 170, showing that even though annoying Lois was, following Diana around, but still following Diana around to see her everyday, dealings, and her going to, was it Africa, and being with a sick child, singing to the child, and comforting the child before um he passed away, things like that. Show these characters in that way. Even with writing the 175, that it was a reaction to 9/11, and you had Superman crying. And so many fanboys, of course, they don't want, even the editors, they didn't want Superman to be shown crying. But how impactful that is now, of showing a character, as strong as Superman, be so vulnerable and crying. And you had Wonder Woman comforting. We need more imagery like that. So
What they could
with
do,
comics,
do a story where Wonder Woman's engaged in a conflict, and then first you can have her like fight a creature, let's say. That way you get the blood in there. Then have it where she has to negotiate peace between two warring nations. They come to her because she's a UN ambassador and she's Wonder Woman. She has the lasso of truth. So she has to like be the mediator for peace, kind of like in Spirit of Truth. So you kind of homage that. So you could show both the warrior and the peacemaker.
exactly. But as uncreative as DC is, they cannot balance that. And so, but if we could ever have stories like that, we definitely need those. But yeah, I was just wanting to say that um with the comic side, I mean, they for it's mostly just that they aren't giving any type of effort. These characters are multifaceted. They have and very layered. But if you want to just stay surface level and just, basically check box certain things of, oh, I have this status quo of the default love interest of this maybe the supporting cast that you may or may not know, maybe the villain that you may or may not know, just to stay afloat and get a pass. But that doesn't work now, and that is why DC is in the state that it's in, where you have, fans that are barely invested in the stories that they have now.
Well, yeah, and the other thing, going to animation, I said this when Nick and I were covering JLU, and obviously the DCAU butchered Wonder Woman. And the thing about, they basically turned her into Batman. But the thing is, like, even if because the creators on the show were very clear that they saw her as like a one note character and they didn't understand the character. I'm like, fine. You had Gail Simone on the writing staff. Say what you want about Gail Simone, but at least she roughly got how to write Wonder Woman to a degree. She's written the character before. She's written female characters before. You don't put her, you don't consult with her at all. What are you doing?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I don't know if she has written the character before, but it seems like she's not completely interested in the character. She's more so, even with looking through her, Twitter,
Oh
it's
God.
Black Canary and Lois,
Well, she's
it's
only
characters like that.
interested in talking about Wonder Woman when it talks about Wonder Woman throwing her period pads at people.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Also though,
remember that tweet? Remember that
yeah,
tweet? Britt sent
yeah.
that to me.
Oh my
You
God.
sent that to me. See, here's my relationship with Britt. She's constantly sending me stuff that pisses me the heck off, and I'm like, dude, I just got mental scarring from that. Okay.
I was gonna
Oh,
say
that's just
though, Gail Simone, she's very obsessed with relationships. She's obsessed with, Jean and Storm, Jean and Cyclops, and Gambit and Rogue, and Oliver and Black Canary, and always just shipping in her mind. Even with Diana's run, it's always about her wanting to have kids with Tom Tresser, which makes no sense because
Tom
I don't.
Chester was a
Oh,
horrible love interest.
it made no sense in Diana's mythos because I don't think she's ever wanted a child in her comics in that way. It just made no sense. It was definitely a self-insertion, which is my biggest beef with Gail Simone.
And also, Tom Tresser was like the biggest misogynist. You want to talk about a misogynist Steve Trevor is? Look at Tom Tresser. He basically takes that and ramps it up to 10. And I'm like, how is this empowering? I'm pissed.
yeah. I think the only time, like wanting children is in Wonder Woman 141, the dream of, but of course that was after the fact of having peace around the world, and it was just a dream. Then I think, well, pre-crisis ended with Diana marrying Steve and having Lita, but she was retconned to be within the Sandman universe anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Kingdom Come, and of course that is mostly what that is about. It isn't Diana, you know, settling for being just the love interest for Clark and just the mother of his children. That's not it. Her She had her own story, and I think that is the issue that Mark Waid probably has, is because first of all, the people who kind of like take issue with it, you can go back to say that they are Lois Lane fans, and they have an issue with Lois being unalived, 6 feet under, and the fact of Clark, moving on. And at the end of it, yeah, he does move on. I don't know if they remarried or whatever, but Diana doesn't do traditional marriages anyway, but having children. And that's the one thing within post crisis, that it was said that, Kryptonian and human DNA doesn't mix, so you couldn't have children.
So
And
John
Kingdom,
should not exist. So there you
right.
go.
And so, and Kingdom Come was also set to be post crisis definitive future ending. So, lo and behold, Clark and Diana are supposed to be together at the end, and they are essentially the end game. Um, so yeah, they took issue with that, and of course harassed Mark Waid about that. And Gail, too, she said something about Diana, being this warrior or whatever like that, and um, but it's very much a contradiction, and you really took issue only because of a shipping thing. It wasn't actually caring for the character and the way she was portrayed, which again, if you read in depth of not only the comic itself, but also the novelization, and how the characters were very flawed because of what was happening. It's not just a how they do the events now, where it's fighting the bad guy, or they say how the world is ending, the all of that upheaval, but at the same time, that everything is going to be okay. This story being an Elseworld, it actually showed you the consequences, and you didn't know if it was going to have a happy ending. So when you don't want these characters, it's kind of like these fans and some of these writers, they want these characters to be, um, to just have that happy ending instead of learning the consequences and being flawed. So with Gail, she's she like I said, she doesn't really, I don't think she cares for Wonder Woman. It's just a shipping thing. So with going after Kingdom Come and the way Diana was portrayed there, I understood it because as a female, you the way Diana was depicted, she very much had it she failed her mission of peace because the world, went to hell basically. And with that, everything was stripped away from her, and but she didn't give up on anything.
Well, not only that, it's like people talk about how she like distances Clark from his humanity, but if you actually read Kingdom Come, she's the first one to try and bring him back to humanity. And when she
Exactly.
shows up, she literally says, "Hello, Clark," and then obviously he corrects her, and then she goes back to calling him Cal. So I'm like,
But at the
it,
end,
yeah, she gives him the glasses.
yeah, but again, it has all it seems like, or it is, every issue boils down to shipping or having a preferred character. And with Kingdom Come, it like I said, it's an end game. It was the end game for Post Crisis. And the fact of Diana being the one who maintained um, wanting Clark to keep his humanity instead of moving him away from it. And honestly, the only reason of even that sort of claim is injustice. But
Oh
even
God.
and really, you can take injustice as an elseworld, and it's like we've talked about it. NetherRealms has an issue with female characters. The same um, storyline Diana had in Injustice is the same storyline Sindel had in Mortal Kombat. It's just a one note. All women are evil. They are manipulative of the men. The men are just victims of the sexy woman or whatever, as the snake in their ear, whatever. So to use this video game to, again, you are downing Diana as, first of all, they have a issue with her being um and as we saw earlier, um from the really weird troll saying of how Diana isn't American. So
I'm like, so are a lot of comic book characters. So I don't know
right,
where you're going off. Technically, so isn't Superman. So
yeah, so you are downing her for not being American, and then you reduce her to just be this demigoddess. So humanity to a lot of fans is if the character is American. So
that's xenophobic. And by technically, Wonder Woman is human because Britt or Jid, what planet is Wonder Woman from?
Last I checked, she was from Earth. But
Isn't that the very definition of human? I'm pretty sure this is not due to interpretation. If you're from Earth, you're a freaking human.
yeah, but the thing is, human again, even if she is human, it's still the fact that she isn't American.
Yeah.
Humanity and being
Thanks,
human,
John Byrne.
yeah, it means that you are American, and you even with her the color schemes and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
she's an American character because obviously she was created in America, but still the color scheme, it just as how you talk about the American way and stuff like that, and what that truly means. It means of being free, and how
Mm-hmm.
this country is supposed to embrace, everyone of different ethnicities, of different race, but obviously
It's
that
supposed
isn't.
to.
It's
Doesn't
supposed to.
always. It's that
Right.
that's the intention behind everything that's in that document called the Constitution. That's what true justice American Ray really means. It's just some writers, Tomasi, Byrne, have misinterpreted that to be America's always good. And I'm like, let me put it this way. I like to think of myself as patriotic, and even I know that's not true.
right? But that is that's what it is. So going back to animation, um, like I think the first time, well, now, in the 70s with Super Friends, you didn't really take that serious.
Hmm.
Wonder Woman um was on the I didn't see many episodes, but I guess she had, a a decent um time screen time and storyline, I guess so. But again, that was a much more, I'll say, just a little bit better, and you can't really take this serious because people just thought it was cartoons. But you go into Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and this is where things are a little bit more serious, and you have the generation of now that basically hold that cartoon up as like the holy grail or the golden standard of these characters without actually reading the comics. And we've said this, you can be fans of any, you know, um, media with of these characters. You can get into it by the comics. You can get into it by the live action movies, the animated movies, standalone movies, and the cartoons. But you can't just think that, and there's different interpretations, and no interpretation is just the right one. But when you have some fans act like this is the one and only interpretation, and you force this idea of the character, you are hurting the character. So I would say that Justice League Unlimited has severely, you know, um, screwed the reputation of Wonder Woman for a lot of, you know, fans that think that, first of all, she's just a Batman love interest.
And she's
And
angry.
and yeah,
When Nick and I covered this, like there was this episode where it starts off. You first see Wonder Woman. She's like trying to have a day off, and then these guys start like robbing a bank and they're escaping. And she like is overly violent with them, and she goes, "I try to have a day off, but I can't because you guys can't stop committing crimes." And I'm like, where's that's not comic accurate Diana. In fact, she would kind of have fun with it. She wouldn't go like, "Oh, I can't believe I gotta do this." And I'm like, what the heck, dude? Again, you had a right. I go back to this because it's like it's not like they didn't have like someone that wasn't familiar with female characters. They had many people, but no, they Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett and all those guys chose to take the lazy road out, which they did a lot.
I was gonna say though, the Hawk and Dove episode that you're referring to, I'm not a Justice League defender by any means necessary, but and I can see why they made that choice because Hawk and Dove were a representation of Wonder Woman in that universe, where she's angry like the Hawk or has that little fiery spirit in her heart, but she also has the peacekeeping in her heart with Dove too. Even that in that episode, because of Ares' influence, a lot of things were going haywire and she kind of felt that rage inside of her too. So yeah, it was out of character, but in terms of the story, it did make sense why she was out of character for that day because of Ares' influence and how that was the big motive of the story of between the balance between not Ares, Hawk and Dove, and how that reflects on Diana as Wonder Woman.
Okay,
And
you
then
know what? I
yeah,
never thought of that. That's a good
yeah,
point. That's
and then
that's actually a really good point.
and also about Super Friends, I am a person who grew up on Super Friends. I had all the DVDs from not Best Buy. What was the thing? Blockbuster. As a kid,
Oh God.
I had all the DVDs from there, and I saw the Wonder Woman episodes, and I think they did such a great representation of Wonder Woman because she had the play origin. She had her villains like the cheetah. Um, I mean, and what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh yeah, her relationships with women, it was so perfect because she was fighting alongside the Hawk Girl, and then they had their own original characters. I think her name was Gina. She was like a Lima. She was like a Brazilian um, character, and Diana and her would team up and defeat bad guys, and it was so perfect. And for it to be the '70s and then to be so progressive with female empowerment and unity, and 30 years later with Justice League Unlimited and them being unable to have that same level of reciprocation with women it's really disappointing because I hated the fact when Shaira she did the Justice League dirty in the comic. Diana would totally forgiven Shaira and saw her as a sister, but
Okay, you know
why?
what? I'm gonna push back on that real quick because when Tower of Babel happened in the comics, Wonder Woman was the first to tell Batman, "Get out."
But who wrote that though?
Mark Wade. That is true. All right, there you go. That is a good point. I'll give you that.
But Brett was some point. Oh, I was going to say that she would have been more forgiving towards Shaira, and how they only bonded over, the balance episode, and they said, Shaira's like, we're like oil and vinegar, we don't mix, but we go together. What on earth is that?
You know what that is? That's Bruce Timm's writing, Jed. That's Bruce Timm's writing. But the other part that I really hated, and this was the first time that I stopped watching the Harley Quinn show, because a lot of it is funny, but then when I think it's like they get exposed to something, and all of a sudden Wonder Woman and Batman, Wonder Woman's like coming on to Batman like, "Hey, Bruce," and I'm like,
Oh, the
"What?"
pheromones.
Yeah,
From
the
Poison
pheromones,
Ivy.
and then it's like those two, and I'm like, oh my god, guys! Again, going back to what we said at the beginning of this episode, they only treat Wonder Woman as like a temptress in Injustice or this, or in the comics with the Tom King Batman run, or as like an overly aggressive warrior, and I'm like, that is extremely problematic. Speaking of problematic, though, so did you know that we were supposed to get a Wonder Woman movie when we got the Catwoman movie, but WB was not confident in a Wonder Woman movie, so we got the Halle Berry Catwoman movie.
Yeah, we got that because just as animation, and going back real quick of
Yeah.
like Sam saying that, and why I said beep beep the first time. um yeah, I understand, and like we said, being diplomatic and his perspective, but I just do not believe that they can't make a Wonder Woman animation work, because with James Tucker, how he is so like bent on the golden age and um and the status quo or whatever like that, and how obviously they know Diana's road gallery enough that what he wanted Bloodlines to basically be Batman Hush for Wonder Woman. And it's kind of like, again, you're thinking of a Batman movie, not a Wonder Woman movie. But he also was riding the coattail of Wonder Woman 17. So you had the status quo shift, not only with comics, and that's something else that we've talked about, is that just they didn't have a concrete, explanation for why they shift from New 52 to Rebirth. It was honestly that they can say whatever they want, but it's truly because of their own bias and what they were comfortable with. And like what Sam says, that they're married to a certain era. And James Tucker, he's definitely married to the 90s era, or, post-crisis era.
Like
So
when he
that's
tried
what
to
he
say that Lois Lane played a big role in Death of
death of super.
Superman, and I even pushed back on that last night. I was like, no, in the actual in the trade of Death of Superman, no, she does not. In the Funeral for a Friend and Reign of Superman, yeah, you would have more of an argument, but the death one, no, she's there at the end to hold Superman as he dies.
But at the same time, what Sam said, that even more so contradiction, was that when he said that they make changes to stories, though, like how they did make a few changes of Gotham by Gaslight. It was that, so you can make changes of these stories. It just all depends on what you would want.
Mhm.
So for you to say that Lois had to be in the story, no, she didn't. You could have rewrote it and changed it
Well,
to
because
fit.
what I would have done, stick to the plot of that movie. If you have him with Wonder Woman, you can have it where where like Superman dies, right? And Reign of Superman could be Wonder Woman dealing with the guilt because she feels like she could have done more to protect him and keep him alive because now the man she loves is dead. So I'm like, you could see right there, you have a better plot, or just adapt Doomed.
Right. I mean, if you wanted Doomsday, eh, you could have adapted Doom. I mean, even Sam, he was like, why did we do Doomsday twice? You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
because
I don't know.
and the last time you did it, it sucked. So why are you
Yeah,
doing
it's
this
kind of
again?
like, why did you do it again? If you know that this has to be a problem or that you're questioning yourself, why do you go through it? Because you're still wanting this status quo as a validation of what you're comfortable in. So that is what's wrong with these creatives when it comes to Wonder Woman. You know that you are just doing this surface level writing, this, and I mean, for the producers of Justice League Unlimited to say that they don't know what to do with Wonder Woman because she has different iterations of Linda Carter, of George Perez, and so they couldn't choose. Okay,
Yeah, you can.
that
It's
doesn't
called
make any
having
sense. You could
options.
exactly so Batman has a lot of options. You could have done Adam West. You could have done Frank Miller's Batman,
You could have made me happy and done Ben Affleck.
or well, 2001.
Oh
Ben
yeah,
Affleck,
that's
but
true. That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
um, but you are limiting yourself only because you were not invested with her character. You are just and you weren't interested in her character. So to say that, oh well, we'll just turn her into a pig and make her, chase after Batman for a date, and that will make her interesting. You are taking this feminist icon, this independent, character, a female character, a character that isn't supposed to be chasing men, especially not a man like Batman, and making her very unfriendly and not a girl's girl as she's supposed to be, e- basically stripping her of who she is
Well, plus
because you're not interested.
not only that, here's the other problem with Justice League. Even in the Wonder Woman focused episodes, they don't really use the Wonder Woman villains. It's like even Batman fights Cheetah, and I'm like, uh, she barely fights Cheetah or Gigantus. So you have two villains there. She kind of fought basically Ares, but it's really Hades, and they kind of tried to do the whole. It's kind of funny. They did the Zeus origin before the Zeus origin because in that they heavily imply that Hades is her father, and I'm like, that would explain the angry attitude. But are you kidding me?
And then speaking of Batman, don't forget, and it's Justice for All. What happened between Batman and Cheetah? Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, he seduces Cheetah to get out. That's Britt. Have you seen that episode?
I have.
Yeah. So they capture, for those that haven't, they capture Batman and basically seduces Cheetah to let him go. And I'm like, see, here's the thing: these guys forgot when they got to Justice League that they were writing characters other than Batman. In other words, they can't have Batman be able to solve everything. This is Grant Morrison's Justice League run all over again, where you have Bat-God. But anyway, to movies. So,
sorry. One last thing about animation.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, we shouldn't be counting out all of animation. There are some good Wonder Woman animations there, like DC Superhero Girls. It's catered towards a much younger audience.
That's actually really funny. I've watched a couple episodes.
But I love how they include, sisterhood and how Diana's close to Zatanna, Supergirl, and they have all these interesting relationships down there. And I think that's something that fans should watch if they haven't yet. And that's just
pretty good.
Last little bit.
But but here's the thing: when Britt told me going to live action that we could have gotten a Wonder Woman movie with the Catwoman thing, and I'm like, okay, as much as I would have loved to get a Wonder Woman movie earlier than 2017, would you really trust that crowd to make a Wonder Woman movie, seeing how they handled Catwoman? Because I guarantee you, they would have made it where like Wonder Woman. You know what they would have done? They would have done. Remember that Chris Claremont Superman Wonder Woman book?
Oh, that god
That's what
awful.
they would
Yeah.
have done. I guarantee you that's what they would. Something like that, where another woman becomes Wonder Woman. I guarantee you that's what would have happened.
Yeah, because okay, so the quotes from that um from the director is basically choosing between Wonder Woman and Catwoman. And the reason why they didn't want to choose Wonder Woman is because they think that she is a female version of Superman. You know, she is the nice, this not even uptight. I wouldn't even say that. It was just the fact that she's just this good girl and she is the hero. And at that time, early 2000s, yeah, it was this kind of like bad girl renaissance of, thinking that that femme fatale type character was female empowerment. So you have in Holly Berry, she was at the height of her career still within that time too. So you want Catwoman. You see her, Michelle Pfeiffer. You have the sexy um, black
Yeah.
leather with the whip. Things like that. So that is what you are going for aesthetic. You're going for appearance. You are not going for plot and story. So the fact of that a director and a costume designer pretty much admits that at that time and still present day they are only going for your look and how can we make this costume sexy. And it is really a shame, that like just said, behind the scenes women are still fighting to get respect, you know and at some point it's kind of like women are going to quit. Women are the actresses are going to
Or we'll have
um
another strike on our hands.
yeah, at some point you might have a strike because that was the thing that Taraji P Henson with The Color Purple. You want you want the all-star cast and you want this like promotions PR of everyone getting along, everyone is happy-go-lucky, you getting paid and everything like that. But behind the scenes, how badly these actresses are treated. They are being blackmailed. They are being threatened. If they don't do a certain thing, then their career is over.
Yeah.
They are degrading themselves for a chance. And it's like, as what in your mind think that as a human being you are supposed to treat another human being that way, that you feel like you can control a person like that. And again, Wonder Woman is the anti of all of that. Is that a woman in control of her own body, her own thoughts, her own actions, her own path. And these creatives, executives do not want that type of um representation of a woman on screen. Even with the Wonder Woman 17 movie, you have Diana being a little bit of an independence of, she's going to fight in the war, but you still had Steve tell her to, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. You still had it more so be his story of he, at the end, was the hero. He sacrificed himself, and that is how Diana reacted of her powers to defeat Ares. That at the beginning, her motivation was still of receiving his watch. And then you turn around in the sequel, she gives up her powers and she basically gives up her dignity and um, even her sanity for a wish. And R wording, someone else And
our wording, someone that was heavily implying the movie to be LGBTQ. So that's not okay on a lot of different levels, Patty Jenkins.
right, and the fact that Patty Jenkins even went to Twitter and tried to kind of like explain it, and it made it worse. You
Because
know,
she's like, oh, it's like that movie Big. But I'm like, you could not make that movie big today. So you're not helping yourself. Plus,
right.
who was the co-writer on that movie? Speaking of dudes writing Wonder Woman, Jeff Johns, who is historically known for not being able to write Wonder Woman well.
Yeah. And then we go to James Gunn, and he
Oh God, here we
apologized.
go. Hang on. Here we go. Oh my! When I read this, I've known this for a while, but Britt, again, getting back to you sending me stuff that puts me in a bad mood. Because for those that don't know, so James Gunn in 2011, he wrote an article listing the 50 superheroes you most want to have sex with. And the number one spot was Wonder Woman. And yeah, he says some pretty choice stuff about Wonder Woman. And I'm like, I get that you apologize for it, bro, but I'm sorry. You having this past with these characters does not inspire confidence in your ability to manage DC.
Now, here's the thing, though. We got to take into account the social, um, the political time of that era. The 2010s, highly, highly misogynistic. It just wasn't James Gunn who was talking recklessly. If you go, you can. All of this discussion can be traced back to other favorite artists and favorite celebrities. During this time, they said some really rancid stuff. In today's world, you cannot say this at all. So definitely take into account of the social climate that we live in, right?
Mhm.
So, and especially if James Gunn is doing this in today's world, it'll be canceled right away. So there's no way he could be doing this in the Me Too world. So I'm not forgiving James Gunn, but I am gonna give him like the benefit of the doubt this time around.
Fair
That's what I'm
enough.
saying. Yeah.
Fair enough. And we'll see how we'll see what happens with the Wonder Woman project that's apparently coming out that doesn't feature Wonder Woman. But anyway, this just trust me. I have I actually know what. Screw it. All right. So you're making so first. Blue Beetle is getting an animated series before Wonder Woman. That should tell you something. Second off, you're based you base off of Paradise Lost and Paradise Found. I know this because it's listed everywhere you can find Paradise Lost and Paradise Found, that those are the inspirations for that series. You exclude Diana from the show, and by the way, she plays a very important role to the plots of both books. You can't just excise her. And I'm like, dude, why do you think that Amazon, that doing a show called like The Amazons or Paradise Lost, is going to market more than saying Wonder Woman? What?
Well, with that, okay, so I agree with Jid about, that he did apologize. And also within that time, it was some very problematic, things being done, being said. I mean, and it's all coming out basically, with celebrities. Their dirty laundry is being shown to the public. I mean, you have P. Diddy, um, these older actors being sued for assault and stuff like that. Even tweets at that time, from 2010, 2012, those tweets are resurfacing. So yeah, we will hope that James Gunn has learned from that, and as the manager of DC, cinematic universe, he is taking it more seriously. But um, expectations are very low. But also within 2011 was the Justice League script, I think by Will, I want to say Bale, I guess is that's how you pronounce his last name. But he did have Diana going back to Justice League Unlimited, and how, having Batman as the lead, and
Oh God, I think we
pushing
talked
up,
about this last
yeah,
time.
and the whole Bat God thing. So you only see Diana as the love interest, and she's basically being Batman's cheerleader. She, is the wanting to have his baby, or she does, and they name him Clark.
Well, that's
Clark
kind of
Wayne.
creepy.
Yeah. Uh, she is also, I think she talks about him being like this, you know, sex god or whatever like that, and talking about Aphrodite. It was something weird that she's basically just pumping up
Uh,
Batman in this script. And
all
so
right,
yeah,
so
if
I just want to say one thing, audience. What you're seeing right now in this top window is a live reaction to whenever Britt sends me anything. This is basically how I react. Go on.
okay, so it's basically payback for having me ugly cry, with the things um
It's too easy. What are you talking about?
so
Speaking of
so
which,
yeah,
by the way, I got a couple of ideas from our discussion, so I'll
yeah,
talk to
I
you after
already
this.
know. Uh-huh. So with the script, yeah, 2011 was the time where still Hollywood thinks women are supposed to be just the love interest, pumping up the male lead. And Wonder Woman was going to be, you know, uh, basically a part of that. And gladly, that script was not happening. The only thing that it was, though, the part of it was used for Zack Snyder, which was having the kid, but it's Lois. Lois having the relationship with Bruce, even though Warner Brothers did veto it, it's still the fact of, that was something that he wanted to use. And just some of the
It
plot.
wasn't so much WB because the WB did not actually veto it. It's just what happened is that when when he had that was the plan up until he stepped away. Then when he came back, he said, "If I because basically what Zach said is when the Snyder cut came out was, hey, I made all new like boards in the event they allow me to come back because of the Snyder cut." And one of them is no, it's still Clark and Lois's kid. So he basically abandoned that idea himself.
Yeah, it's still their kid, but at the same time, his name is still Bruce, and he still becomes the next Batman. It's just the fact that it's their kid, but he's still powerless to be Batman's and be inspired by Uncle Bruce. So,
Which trust me, Britt, I would rather prefer it that Zach puts Superman with Wonder Woman, but I understand it's the whole thing. There's only so much that you
um
can do for that.
so with the Paradise Lost show, um I would say that I think it's going to be 8 episodes, maybe
Mm-hmm.
10. And Diana will probably, okay, how it can go, and it's the writer thing in me, but I would say that she's probably in the beginning, or she could be in the beginning, and it's telling the story of the Amazons. She could be already in man's world and just telling the story. Even if it is a prequel, you know,
From
she
before
can
she's
be,
born.
yeah, it can be either, it can be that, say she's, if James Gunn brings in Julia and Vanessa, and Diana tells her own story of the Amazons, and the tales of that has been passed down and told to her. That can happen. She can be having an interview with Clark and telling her story of the Amazons. Um,
She could be on a date with Clark. I'm sorry, I had to put that in. But
um,
I mean, I get that. It's just if they were going to do that, my only thing is that I like to think they would have. And granted that there's not going to be anything until like 2027. So still, we'll know if Diana is actually going to show up in the show if they cast her before then.
exactly. Or even if it is a prequel, um, it's still telling. It can still be telling the story of the Amazons, of course, as a flashback, and then midways or the last episode, it can jump to present day where Diana probably during the contest, or or again, it's something, Historia. If this is something that even though they're using Paradise Lost, I still think it's only because of the title. Because having the only thing that they really said was that it's Games of Thrones, like
Which that's
it's
any
inspired by that.
story with the Amazons. That's the thing.
Yeah. And then so I really do think that probably at the end, if they do Historia, it's either Diana will be born or she already I would say probably the contest and someone is telling her the story of the Amazons. Something like that. I just
Yeah.
don't believe that it's just a complete series of the Amazons without Diana there. And the fact
Well,
that James
why?
Gunn,
Why not? Because we all know James Gunn prefers the D-listers.
well, yeah, but still, the fact that honestly you can't really take their word for it, but how Zaslav pretty much said it was that Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were going to be like featured. They are, and it's basically the D-listers, or are piggybacking off of them. So that's why I can only imagine at some point within the series, Diana will show up, whether in the beginning as being told the story as a flashback, or at the end of seeing her leaving, either being born or leaving the island. And also James Gunn did say she was going to be introduced before 2027. So if the show, I would say if the show starts filming next year and then come out in 2026, um, yeah, she has to be casted within the next year, I would say.
We'll see. But anyway, so Jid, what do you think of the whole Paradise Lost thing?
See, I have a funny feeling in my bone that we're probably gonna get the whole Hippolyta was the first Wonder Woman story for some reason. I
That
just
is true.
I can totally see that happening. If they want to retcon how Diana in the previous universe, she was like the first superheroine of all time or whatever, they might retcon it here, where Hippolyta was with the JSA in the 40s, because we do have the JSA in the movie for Superman, so they might do that and they might do this Historia, they might do the whole Heracles or Hercules and Hippolyta. They might do that story. They might not do it
I think what
explicitly,
they'll
of
do,
course,
I think
but
what they'll do with the Heracles thing is they'll reference it happen
they'll
because they're not
reference
going to
it.
show what actually
You
happens
can't do
there.
exactly, can't do it. But I can definitely see Hippolyta being the first Wonder Woman, and Diana later, like in the show, the contest is the last episode where she becomes Wonder Woman, and then
It's true.
so that's my hypothesis, or what I think might happen.
That's true. So you could kind of go with that. So now we're going to talk about the different eras and origins of the Amazons as it relates to DC. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to do it according to DC, and then we're going to do it according to actual Greek myth. Which, trust me, with the Greek myth, I got some stuff that I can bring up because there's one particular story from Greek myth so it's kind of funny. The movie version of this left out a crap ton of this story. I'll get into that later. So then we get so for the Amazons of Paradise Island. So the way I normally go off of their origin is the Perez version, where the Amazons are just reincarnated of like slain women. I like that one. And I also like how Hippolyta was designated as the queen. It was like she was the first to like step onto the shore of the world. So because of her bravery, she becomes the leader of the Amazons. By speaking of Hippolyta, I got this in the mail today. I now have a Hippolyta action figure.
Yeah, I really like that. They should make, of course, they won't, but make more of the Amazons.
They do have one for one of the other Amazons from the movie. I think it's Manalepi, but they do have one more Amazon.
One more instead of
One
like
more, yeah. The problem is that a lot of the Amazons aren't well-known characters. I mean, I guarantee you eventually we'll get one for Artemis, but still, it's like there's not that. Again, and this gets back to Wonder Woman not getting enough attention. But anyway, so Britt, what do you think of the origin for the Amazons as it relates to DC Comics?
Yeah, Perez is um the origin that I always, pretty much go to. As far as Diana's origin though,
Mm-hmm.
um as as a writer, you know, with the with how the characters are, like we said, they're going to be century year old characters. And so I lean more to the Clay origin, of course. And with the Amazons Perez origin of reincarnated women, I just feel like, again, that speaks to how women have gone through so much, and to for these women, that their lives being cut short by men, or tragedy, and given basically a second chance, that speaks, it's just so powerful to me. And so I truly love that origin. Now for Diana, um Clay is number one, because
Mm-hmm.
just the mythical part of it, the purity of it, and just being like, basically, I see Diana as the embodiment of Mother Earth. That she is an Earth woman. She represents, and
It's true.
especially,
She's even more human because of that.
yeah, I mean, the fact that Hippolyta, being a mother, being wanting to be a mother, and she formed this baby from the sands of Earth. She's an Earth. She is definitely an Earth woman, but Diana is the embodiment of Mother Earth. That is the most pure, quote unquote, birth that you can have. And again, that is something that, honestly, I just think of as a writer, as a creative writer, and you know I'm gonna stick with it. You know, um, as for the Zeus origin, honestly, I just like the messiness of the gods, and the family dysfunction that we can play around with. But I don't necessarily just think that, oh, this should be Diana's origin, for the fanboy feeling that, oh, now she is like, she's more relatable because she has a father. I No, that is
Mm-hmm.
not the way to go. Only for me, it's just the messiness of a dysfunctional family that you can play off with. But even with the Clay origin, because she was gifted by the goddesses, you can still play with that, with the Zeus origin of having the gods within Diana's, family. Um, so yeah. And what about you, Jid?
Yeah, go ahead.
Britt, do you mind going back 2 slides back so I can go back
Sure.
to the so this one here. So the golden age, the golden age and post crisis are pretty much similar. George Perez basically just elevated the whole golden age story and removed the
Mm-hmm.
instance of the bondage and took off all that, the sexualization of Wonder Woman in his run, even though it was sexual here and there, like you could tell.
A little bit,
Silver
yeah.
Age, people neglect the Silver Age origin, but that was by far the worst Wonder Woman origin, in my opinion, because it was the Wonder Woman Volume 198 in the 50s with Robert Callinger. I'm saying his
Hmm.
name wrong, but he wrote the origin where it was these women, their husbands were killed in war. So then these women were just sad, and it was just their women and their daughters, and then they became the Amazons. And
Of
Diana
course.
Diana had a father. It wasn't named who he was, but that was basically their origin, and they were just sad women until Diana, who was like a child, she led them on and she gave them hope, which is such a
What?
downgrade
That's the
from
most stereotypical thing. A bunch of women were sad, and I'm like, that's the most stereotypical origin for a
that.
female empowerment
Yeah, and
hero.
then that's when you got the whole Wonder Woman dating the merman, and her dating with all these guys and her when she was a teenager.
What is with the Justice League and dating mermaids? Because Clark did that too. I'm like, wait a second
They
here.
stole a bunch because basically what the thing was, it was kind of like the Adventures of Superman. When he was a Superboy, they wanted to do that with Wonder Woman too, and then that's how they had the Adventures of the Wonder Trot, and then the Wonder Girl, and then Wonder Woman herself, and then that was really messy during the Silver Age. But
isn't that also when they brought in Donna? Donna was supposed to be young Diana, but then they wanted Diana to have a sidekick, so they made it.
Yes.
No, that's actually Donna.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, I knew that was familiar because that's the most confusing thing ever, Britt. Because it's like with Wonder Woman. Okay, so we want to give her a sidekick. Let's give her younger self, but she can't be a mentor to her younger self. Just say it wasn't her the whole time. And I'm like,
this is why, like, I'm gonna get so much hate for this when I say this, but I find Donna Troy so redundant unless it's done right post crisis. With honestly, I don't like John Byrne as much as many people do. He did an excellent job with giving Donna Troy a good origin, making her Diana's twin. That was a good origin.
That works. And then he proceeded to have Superman make out with a 14-year-old girl. Anyway, Then we get to post-Infinite Crisis, where this was a cool idea. So this was after Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord. And then again, this goes out into the maybe she failed. So then you have all the Omax attacking Paradise Island. And then the Amazons basically so the Paradise Island was going to be removed from man's world. I mean, in other words, you would never be able to go there again. So they gave Wonder Woman the choice: come with us, since you save yourself. And she goes, "No, I have a duty to this world. I have to stay here." So it's one of the most heartbreaking panels. Pages. So you have Wonder Woman hovering. It's drawn by Ashley Jimenez, and it's her hovering, and then you see the island get smaller and smaller and smaller until it's gone. And
that is sad.
It is this, and she's just standing there, standing up there watching it. Then she proceeds to beat the crap out of some Omax. So there is that. You piss off Wonder Woman. And so they went off. So they went from that. Then they published what is universally known as one of the worst Wonder Woman stories ever. Amazon's Attack.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Every Wonder Woman fan watching this just reacts exactly like Jen did. Oh my god!
put a trigger warning. I swear.
Yeah, I'll put a big trigger warning text on the screen when I edit this. Oh god, it's good. Here's a good indicator of this story. Britt, have you ever read Amazon's Attack?
No, because I mean,
All right.
when I first heard it, it was kind of like, okay, don't read it. So no, I just.
So I have the trade somewhere, but anyway, so there's a scene. This is how strategic this book is. It's strategic genius. So Wonder Woman finally confronts her mother, who is leading this invasion, and she goes, "It's basically this thing. She's about to get her mom to step down." To like stop this attack. She goes, "You're gonna have to kill your own daughter in order to get past me." So, all right. Superman swoops in, picks up Wonder Woman, brings her to Batman to strategize how to fight Hippolyta. So essentially, Superman scooped up Wonder Woman, who was talking down Hippolyta, and then goes, "What are we gonna do about Hippolyta?"
God,
and I'm like, "You're Superman.
Sense.
Pick up Hippolyta, bring her here, and say, if you don't negotiate peace, we're gonna I-beam you." Or wait, Green Lantern can create a giant green hand, lift up all the Amazons and the Greek beasts, and just deposit them somewhere. This is the problem. See, you could do this story in the death of Superman era, where the Justice League was a bunch of D-listers. But when you have like Green Lantern, the Flash, Superman, even Wonder Woman, I'm like, this makes zero, because I'm pretty. Also, you have the Amazon shooting down fighter jets with bows and arrows.
Yeah, I'm glad.
They slaughter a man and his child.
No, but the thing with Amazon's Attack is it makes no sense because Diana, she grieved her mother's death in Paradise Found with after the Aura Worlds at War story. So why would DC editorial bring Hippolyta back and then have her fight her mom? even though just a few years ago she literally cried over her mother's death in Superman's arms. What on earth are they
There's a
doing?
lot of reasons why this story doesn't make sense, shit. And then guess what? So here's where it really puts in the dagger. You know the story ends, Britt. The last shot of it
No.
is that the Greek
God.
gods have been captured by Granny Goodness of Apocalypse. And I'm like, because this was supposed so. During this time, during this time period, you had the storyline. Previous to this, you had 52, which, in other words, it was after Infinite Crisis. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman take a year off. So, and that was really popular. This is where you got like a lot of Black Adam stories. This was also the first appearance of Kate Kane, Batwoman, the version we know now as like the gay icon that was in a relationship with Renee Montoya. So, Dan DiDio wanted to have his own version, so he called it Countdown. It was counting down to Final Crisis. So he was like, tie this into Countdown somehow. So then you got that. Then also tying into Countdown, you may be wondering, Jared, what role does Donna Troy play in this storyline? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask. Oh my God. So Donna Troy shows up, and she's trying to talk down Hippolyta. And she goes, she goes, how much have you talked to Diana about this? And then Hippolyta basically goes, I would love to talk to my daughter. Please go get her for us. Donna Troy walks out of of where Hippolyta is, runs into Red Hood, and is never seen again in the book.
What?
Exactly. And then wait, it's even better. So Supergirl and Cassie Sandsmark, you may be wondering what's their role. So Hippolyta basically says, I would like to. I'll tell you what. I will discuss peace terms with the President of the United States. So Cassie Sandsmark and Supergirl go outside Air Force One and are trying to talk to the Air Force crew, saying, land this plane on the outside of a plane where they definitely can't hear them. And I'm reading this and I'm like, this is the stupidest stuff I have ever read. And a tie-in, here's a moment where I lost all respect for Tom Tresser. So Wonder Woman's like carrying him. She drops him by accident. He lands on Black Canary and goes, oh, well, you're a soft landing.
Who wrote this?
Let me see. It's written by Will Pfeiffer.
I have no. I don't
I know. Oh my gosh, Britt. And there's so much more. There's this funny part. So Wonder Woman has to leave because Steve gets stung by a bee. He gets
what?
Well, not Steve. Tom Tresser gets stabbed by a mythological bee, and it's poisoning him. And there's this moment where Batman goes, "Bees, my God!" But it's written so in a way it's really just Batman going, "Bees." Really, bees? My God! But it's and then she has to leave because the government launched a nuke at Themyscira, so she has to go disarm it. But then there's other part where the Amazons start where there are attacks in other parts of the country. So Superman goes Smallville because apparently the Amazons have set fire to the grain fields. So he just flies over. Frost press the whole thing. And then the audience is like, thanks for reminding us that Superman could literally stop this entire war inside of 10 seconds. I'm like, every single page you turn this book and you're like, what the heck? And it's like the most ridiculous thing I have ever read. It's a character assassination on the Amazons because, you know what's kind of funny? You have two Amazons talking about, I think this has gone too far, like we're doing all this bad stuff. And then the other Amazon says, yeah, you're right. They don't do anything.
God awful.
I tapped on Gail Simone just earlier, but I gotta thank her for making the Hippolyta and Diana's relationship a lot better in her run. It's
bad when Gail Simone improves it. Wow, I'm reading this because you know what's kind of funny? I picked up this trade at comic book store randomly because I didn't know what it was because this was back before I was this self-proclaimed comics lord and I was just learning all this stuff. So I'm flipping through this and I'm like, what? What is this? It is the worst Wonder Woman story. One of the worst DC stories of all time because of this. And Britt, your reactions to all this is worth bringing it up in the storyline. And when you sent this to me, I was like, oh God, I have to talk about Amazon's attack. No.
Now, honestly, I wish you hadn't, because I mean, again, with doing the research of, and again, it's all surface level until you really do the research of, some of this stuff. And it's kind of like, okay, truly, Twitter, you do not know the half of this stuff. And some of the recommendations, some of the the big accounts on Twitter, they recommend these stories or a certain writer they praise, and it's kind of like, do you actually know? Have you actually read in depth the story itself, but also the behind the scenes, if it's available, the behind the scenes within the story, but also the writer, the problematic writer? Why are you endorsing this? And now I am so glad that I have not read this story, because
did I mention the Bantam McDowell show up in this? So what they do is, so Britt, you know how they dress the Bantam McDowell?
I no.
Okay, so they're basically in loincloth.
Except
it's a bikini loincloths, and they're using machine guns.
The thing with Bottom McDowell is that the tribe during the 90s, and even with Perez's reign, it was sort of problematic. I guess people don't really like to talk about this, but I guess the depiction of them is very problematic because they were from the Egyptian tribe, so you already have that negative racial kind of stereotyping with them, and then the over sexualization, and then them having the more violent, aggressive tendencies. This is very, very problematic in general.
Speaking of problematic, so the next story, this is the first time where I've gone like, I like the book more. Okay, so Flashpoint. So here's the way the movie. Actually, you know what, Britt? Tell us how the movie portrays Diana, please, and the war.
She's a murdering temptress, cheater, whatever, Oh, and she killed a child, and honestly, I did not read the story, and this goes back with the problem with animation, even with New Frontier, is that they take these liberties for better or for worse, and mostly for worse. And if you only watch the animation of Flashpoint, you would just think that Wonder Woman, this is not even Wonder Woman, I wouldn't even say that, Warrior Woman, it's just like the worst character ever. Like, you would not want to invest in Wonder Woman, as a character.
Now, you may be wondering, Jared, why does that piss you off? Because I read the freaking omnibus and I know the full story.
Thing. See, I only have the Flashpoint with Wonder Woman in it. That's her subsection, and it's such a huge difference.
It's a huge difference, right, Jared? It's a ridiculous difference. So here's the story. Here is the story. So it's relatively so the way they do the Wonder Woman leaving the island is that she wants to explore the world. So that's fine. So she gets on a boat and just sails out of Themyscira. Then her boat is like topsized by a kraken. It's stopped by Aquaman. She meets Arthur. This is the first time the Amazons and the Atlanteans encounter each other. So they rendezvous, and by rendezvous I mean as friends. So then they decide, okay, so our countries will be stronger to like face the world if we have an alliance, and the strongest way to form an alliance is through like a political marriage. So okay, fine. So what happens is Wonder Woman's aunt and Ocean Master are in love, but they want to sabotage Diana and Orm and Aquaman, partly because Ocean Master sees Orm as a usurper, and they see Wonder Woman and Arthur as like not embracing like violence and war and blood, because they feel like violence and war and blood is the best way to get peace. So what they do is, so the Atlanteans show up on the wedding. So an Amazon dresses as an Atlantean, tosses a trident, and it kills Hippolyta. That's the first thing. Then, all right. Then in issue 2, you do this thing. So the Atlanteans show up to the Amazons in force, not to start a war, but just to show, hey, we're showing off our military might. Let's try and negotiate this peacefully. Then again, the conspirators make it look like the Atlanteans are bombing Themyscira, force Wonder Woman and the Amazons to destroy Themyscira, and that's why they invade the UK and take that over as New Themyscira. At which point, Wonder Woman recruits basically every female superhero that we would know and turns them into her Furies. That's why the series is called Wonder Woman and the Furies. So in issue 3, so Wonder Woman finds out about this. She finds out about all of the conspiracy because she walks in on Orm and I think her name is Paracelea or something like that. The point is her aunt kissing. And she goes to Arthur and says, Arthur, we have been manipulated. I know there's no love lost between us, but hey, but also combined, the reason why Mera got killed is because during the Atlanteans, obviously after the bombing, attacked the Themyscira, and Wonder Woman is basically begging Mera, don't make me do this. You're like a sister to me. Mera does not back off, so Wonder Woman ends that threat. And she wears the helmet as a warning and like a thing saying, listen, this is what this war has cost us. So continuing on, then, oh boy, she shows up on Arthur's ship and goes, listen, dude, we're being manipulated. You gotta stop. And then Arthur says, you're wearing her helmet. I don't care. I'm going to kill you. So they fight. Eventually, it gets through their heads what's going on. And it still doesn't work. It's because of the death of Mera that Arthur is like blinded by rage, and they were this close to peace. And then in that scene right there where Arthur says, you killed my wife, that was another scene where Diana had been trying to tell him, we've been manipulated. This is not, we're destroying the world. We have to stop. Mind you, I also said, after reading this, I was like, let me go see what happened to Shazam, because if this is wrong, Wonder Woman did not kill Shazam. She did not kill Billy Batson. So I'm like, what the hell was this? So, Britt, which version of the story do you prefer?
I honestly prefer the book because, okay, so with all of that, because in the animation, it made it seem like Diana, I think she even choked Steve, like older Steve.
The way they do that is that
kills him, I think.
Yeah, the way they do it is that Steve is captured, but he's wrapped in the lasso. He has to tell her the truth and stuff. Then they just fade. Then they like cut to another scene, so they leave it, and then someone says through dialogue that Steve is dead. So they didn't even paint that with Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay. So with the animation, it just made it seem like, especially with the fight with Mera, it just basically Diana wanted to be with Arthur, and she killed Mera, to be with him. He obviously cared more for Mera and wanted, his wife. Diana got angry. She fought him, and she killed Billy out of her rage too. She was just a tyrant. She was just a temptress and a tyrant.
Nope. It could not be even far. It got me. You should have seen my face when I first read that. I'm like, what the heck? Because I like the Flashpoint movie, and I thought it was pretty accurate up until the point where I read that, and I'm like, so Britt, you know how you like beep 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 beep? I was beeping to a degree that I would have broken the sensors at this point. I was like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah, again, it goes back to how animation, I mean, the book, her story is interesting enough. And that's the thing. these creators are not interested in the book itself, in the story. They think that they can do better. So with animation, they always change the story because it's what they perceive. And
I swear, if
and
I ever get Jay Oliva on the show, because he's the one that I like directed and worked on the movie, I'd be like, okay, I gotta ask, why did you paint Diana as a murderess when she's not in the book?
But also, though, it's also easier to make Diana the evil temptress because it takes away her agency, it takes away the time too. Because if we were to put that in the movie that it was a they're misguided and it was a war, this and that, it would have taken up at least additional 15 more minutes in the movie, and to cut off all the fluff in their mind, they
Well,
just
easy. Don't include Wonder Woman killing Billy Batson or something like that, or
and
just
yeah,
don't even
exactly.
show that back part. Just say Wonder Woman killed Mara because she did in the book, so that's consistent. Don't show the sleeping with Arthur because that did not happen. They never got to
Ooh,
that stage in the
this
relationship.
reminds me, like, the whole Aquaman and Wonder Woman thing. I have to bring this up. If you guys did not know, in the Justice League cartoon, going back to there, it's food about evil. I swear. In the
Yeah, exactly.
enemy below episode, the original episode, it was written where Aquaman cuts his hand to save not his son, but to save Diana from drowning. That was the original plot for Enemy Below.
Even though that's not the way the comic goes. The
Even though
comic
it's not
goes,
in
he
the
cuts off
comic.
his hand to save his son. So,
wow. And doesn't like she ends up falling in love with him or something
Well,
like that?
it wasn't implied in the podcast, but I feel like that's what they would have gone through with the show.
oh yeah, they definitely would have, because really they treated Diana like she was the village love interest. That's the way they treat. That's the way they treat Diana, and we said throughout the entire episode. But I, it when I was, I cannot properly express. You saw how pissed off I was with Amazon's attack. Now imagine that, like, I don't know, 20 times. It's like me when I first watched Joss Whedon's cut of Justice League. I was like, what the hell? It's Britt, the way you are with Tomasi, that's me right now.
Yeah, yeah. And going back with Tomasi of, how he admitted of being intimidated by Diana. He even wrote what's so crazy is that he wrote Wonder Woman the Black and Gold, and it was using New 52, status or the aesthetic. And he did the exact same thing that you would think that, okay, so with the Superman and Wonder Woman book, you already have uh fans judging the book and thinking that Diana is just this warrior and that she's you know having to be talked by Clark and stuff like that. And that is something that Soul did not do. He didn't have that. He had Diana being the more mature one. She's, again, the confidence, the independence, but yet she is in a relationship. But then you have Tomasi, and he made her a little bit more angry. He went towards the goddess of war in the way of what we didn't want her to be, the bloodthirsty warrior. And so with his Black and Gold um, story, it was him, using her as this warrior woman. And it was something about a sword with Hephaestus. And it's kind of like, you see, it's the writer's problem. It's not necessarily the relationship, or it's not, you know, something like that. It all boils down to the writer and their preference. And then because their preference is so impactful, you get fans that will either be influenced to liking that version of the character and thinking that that is the end all be all of the character, like so many do with Justice League Unlimited, or you have where they reject any idea um, of a character's um, iteration like New 52.
Speaking of New 52, then we get to the New 52 Amazons. And okay, this is where they bring in the Amazons, rape sailors and stuff. Now, I get what they were going for, because as we'll bring up when we get to the mythological aspect of the Amazons did leave their island, meet up with dudes, did the act, got pregnant, and if the kid was a male, they sent the kid to live with the father or killed the kid. If it's a female, obviously they adopted the kid. So I get what they're going for. It's just you kind of there are some things that don't translate well, and I think this is one of those occasions.
Exactly. With the new 52, like you said, we get that they wanted to have a little bit more realism and do something different from, what was before. But with the Amazons, again, how they are supposed to be portrayed, no, it's not that realism for the Amazons here was a no-go. Um, Much rather it had been, just sticking with the Perez origin. And again, if you wanted the Zeus, Zeus daddy or whatever, all you had to do was just that. But the Amazons, R-wording sailors, killing them. Not only did they kill the sailors, but they also um, had um, the male children as slaves, and also
Or killed them.
or killed them, or sent them to Hephaestus to work for him. Um, and with the Finch run, they were also just on an island by themselves, and even in the Tomorrowverse. Um, I forgot
Wait,
about.
Britt, you forgot one little thing. Not only were they on the island by themselves, but so this is when they give the new 52 origin for Donna Troy, where she was created by magic clay as a weapon to destroy Wonder Woman. Donna riled up the Amazons. They went to the island and killed all the men.
Yeah, which was awful because Diana, um, she wanted to talk to the Amazons to bring them together. Like, these are our brothers, our, sons or whatever. They need to be home, and we can make this work of, or at least just, having some type of peace between them. So to use Donna as a villainess to not only kill Diana at some point, but also just to go full massacre. Yeah, the New 52 already had a lot of strikes against it, and especially on the Wonder Woman side. And again, it had nothing to do with the relationship itself with Superman, because that, I think, was just kind of like a sacrificial lamb type thing of, you use that um you use that basically as the target, but don't really go for what's the actual issue is. So yeah.
Well, not only that, my problem with the Azarella run, because I did like a lot of the stuff, because he was like factoring her more into Greek myth. I like that. It was too separate from the DC universe, because particularly in a universe where she's dating Superman, I kind of would have liked it if the Amazons got to meet like the ideal man, got to meet Superman, and because Superman, the reason why this the one time I'll mention SuperWonder, the reason why it works with Wonder Woman is because he is literally the opposite of everything the Amazons believe about men.
Exactly.
And I
That
would
is
love to see that paradigm like challenge.
exactly. If the Amazons think that a man like Hercules or Zeus, they are powerful men and everything like that, and so you think that Clark, with the same type of power, he would want to control. He want to have control. He would want to, you know, basically do the same thing that Hercules or Zeus did to Hippolyta, to Diana. But to see that this is a man that is humble, that has respect, that wants to help and wants to protect the island, and just seeing that interaction, especially with Hippolyta, because as like I said, I write this all the time, but writing their dynamic as like the mother and son-in-law type thing is, it helps them grow. because you have Clark in this situation of these strong women, and they do have this perception of men with power might, they're not trustworthy, and you can't kill them,
Yeah,
so he
well,
has to.
technically they can if they have the
Yeah,
magic
they can.
swords.
Right. But it's the fact that he is working so hard to show that he can not only be trusted by them, but trusted by Diana and worthy of her love. And actually, you know, um, just working hard for that. And then the the Amazons are just basically seeing, yeah, the total opposite of what they thought. It's this one man with all this power that it can't something can change, within the world.
All right, so Jid, what do you think of the new 52 version of the Amazons?
Absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Here's my take with the new 52. Obviously, it was 2010. It was a different time. It was for women in pop culture, and then this kind of inverses the whole power dynamic of women, and it kind of makes it like a misandrist approach to the Amazons. And it is accurate, and it is like, oh, like, to the mythos of the Amazons, because the Amazons, if you read the actual origins, they weren't all that pretty. Marston turned around and made a whole 180 with them in his run in the 40s. But the new 52, it was very. See, my thing is that I'm a hardcore feminist, and to see something like this as a misandrist is kind of like a joke. It's kind of like, are you serious?
I will say what's kind of funny is when Gal Gadot was cast as Wonder Woman, people complained that she wasn't like as muscular as Wonder Woman, but it looked like her. Then she goes, you realize that in Amazon lore, apparently they cut off a breast to be better archers. So looking like the Amazons is not necessarily the best way to do this.
Yeah, and then the whole thing, like, and this misconception of Wonder Woman, it comes from this universe, obviously. See, the people have a more problem with SuperWonder than they do have the fact that she is Zeus's daughter, and the fact that the Amazons are the assault men. That's my whole thing. Like that's the biggest concern is the ship over the damage is done to a character. And if you go to sorry, all the comic videos, they're always talking about, oh, the dark side of the Amazons, the story that no one told you about Amazons. Character assassination. And then it also led into Tomorrowverse, which Britt talked about earlier too, where Earth 43 or something like that, and it was,
oh yeah,
and Hippolyta being cold when she has always been loving and like a helicopter mom to Diana, and you're showing us this version of her. Make it make sense.
That's the first time we see like the Tomorrowverse version of the Amazons. Yeah, I could tell. I could tell. I could see why people would be pissed off. Then we get to DC Rebirth, which in my mind was the largest mistake DC has ever made when it comes to stuff. You could have still repaired some of the damage, but they basically went back to post-crisis. But this is where you get the whole idea, and we'll get to it later, where like Diana's bi because she comes from an island of only women, according to Greg Rucka. And I'm like, you can definitely take it like analogies or like inspiration from that. But to say, because it's kind of funny, you notice how that was just Greg Rucka saying that he considers her like that, and DC never really weighed in on that, because if DC considered her that way, they would have done a social media post. They would have done so much other. They would have put her in the Pride books. They would have done so much more, but they
Yeah,
exclude her.
yeah. With going back to Tomorrowverse,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
so I think it was Earth 46,
Yeah,
and but
nerd.
with hush, um, so Crisis Part 3, for the casting, um, it says that there will be a young Diana, and Hippolyta will be back. So I'm thinking that we will see a flashback of this Diana with her Hippolyta. So
Yeah,
hopefully they have a better, like, okay, yeah, Earth 46 Amazons, they are very much like the new 52 of the men are slaves, they're locked up and everything like that, and just man haters.
Yeah, because that would that would be consistent with the way they've done those Crisis movies. Because the first one is like a flashback to the formation of the Justice League. Number 2 is like the origin story for Psycho Pirate and Supergirl. So it would make sense if they make the third one an origin for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so seeing Diana and I mean, you have to
Britt,
kind of.
this could be where we see a little bit of her and Clark's early relationship.
I would much rather have that because, I mean, the producers already said, Jim, I think his name is Jim Craig.
Yeah.
He gladly he said that he was a fan of Wonder Woman, and that he likes the idea of her being immortal because it gives her a little bit more perspective of life. And that is another thing, is that she is much more um she feels that life is precious, and that all in with seeing with it being a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because the relationships that she grows to have, with mortals, they do have a time limit. And she has to see them get old and they pass on. But at the same time, she is blessed to see the world evolve. And hopefully it evolves for the better. But she gets to see, just the beauty of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And for that take, I love that. I love that idea, and just like Immortal Wonder Woman. But at the same time, we needed more of Diana's story because, again, Twitter having a hissy fit over the fact that she is with Clark, even though it's Earth 2, they reduced her to saying that she's just a love interest, when even though the Tomorrowverse was kind of like very it it was rushed, and a lot of the stories that they wanted to go continue on, they had to cut it, and a lot of stuff, as you know, Jared, that you don't like, but was done off screen. The fact that Jim Craig did say that they had more JSA movies, and that Wonder Woman was like the complete lead of all of that, and to tell her story. And for Crisis 3 to have at least that little bit, I would say that's okay. And
Likely, what I think he probably did is they told him he was, and obviously he knew ahead of time that they were ending with Crisis. So he's probably like, okay, so let me basically tell the story, tell the truncated version of the story that I want, because you could have like origin, so young Diana, a little bit of World War II, then her relationship with Clark, because they normally do those origins in like 3 parts.
Exactly. And that gives her a little bit more than what people complained about, even though really still her relationship with Clark still is very is secondary, because Earth 2 Clark was only in the JSA film and right now in the Crisis, but he was a supporting character for Diana. Even in War World, she said being with the younger Clark, we didn't even know that she would be a different Wonder Woman until that scene, and didn't know
She
she
said
was
Mike
older.
Clark, yeah.
Yeah, didn't know she was older, didn't know anything like that. So, but she is the lead, and Jim Craig, he wanted her to be the lead. So to try to reduce her just because of a relationship is like, that's your own doing.
Well,
And like I said,
and here's the funny part, and Jid, I don't know if you saw this. So when that scene came out with Crisis, first off, that was the only like 4 seconds that was talked about in that movie. Second off, the funny part is people were calling Clark an adulterer, even though it was firmly established Lois is dead at this point. Like, she died. He was with Lois. She died of old age. Then he got with Diana. But again, they were like, he's committing adultery, and I'm like, this isn't a mortal beloved.
Oh my goodness. You guys, okay, but get your tomatoes ready because I have a really unpopular take with this one.
Oh no.
I don't. It's not really just SuperWonder, so don't worry.
Okay.
My thing is, I don't think Diana should be immortal because here's the thing: in her first run, in the Marston run, she actually drank a potion when she was 19, so that she would not age again and she'd be immortal. But if anyone leaves that island, they would lose their age and they would lose their immortality. And I think that should be carried over to even the post crisis run. I think in the Perez one it was mentioned somewhere, but people have forgotten to use that in their Wonder Woman stories.
Well, what they did with post crisis, because I remember they did reference it briefly. I think what they did is they made it if she gets married, she loses her immortality.
Yeah.
I thought it was pregnant because in Kingdom Come, it was when she got pregnant, like she started to get gray hair.
But didn't she have gray hair in the beginning too, though? Or
No, she didn't. It was later. But yeah,
Okay.
in Kingdom Come, it was that. But I remember specifically it was actually drawn by. So after Infinite Crisis, when they reformed the Justice League, they did a comic by Brad Meltzer. It was Justice League issue 0, which basically showed like that the Trinity has been behind each version of the Justice League that we've had. And it shows them throughout all these different time periods. So one of them is Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman was going to marry someone. I forget exactly who it was, but Batman said, you realize this means that if you marry him, you lose your immortality.
Right.
Which, of course, it's Batman knowing that. But still, the point is, I think post-crisis, it was marriage makes her lose her immortality.
Honestly,
Right.
no tomatoes there because
Yeah.
although the only way I see the immortality thing working is, like I said, the beauty and the curse of a character confliction. She sees, people that she care about, they have a limited time with her. She sees them, the evolution of life. And she gets to witness that as, again, Mother Earth, basically a personification of that. But at the same time, if it is where she ages slowly, kind of like they try to have it with Clark too, that he ages slowly, even though it doesn't make sense because he gets his power from the sun.
Yeah, I'm like,
So
as long as that sun stays yellow, you're immortal, bro.
yeah, but still, whether you have her age slowly or be immortal, or that losing um losing her immortality because she leaves the island, gets pregnant, or marriage, I I can go either way. It just depends on the story and how it goes about. Again, basically our whole episode here is just about, it doesn't matter Diana's appearance, it doesn't matter of, her uniform, um anything like that. Those details, it's all about story. So yeah, honestly, you can
Yeah.
go either way.
Yeah, with me, and again, Britt and I have said in the show before about the Zeus origin. If it's a good story, I could care less about what you change. If I enjoy the story, you can have her not be immortal and
Yeah.
not be Zeus's origin. I really don't care at that point.
See,
I know
here's why.
some people
Yeah.
do.
No, here's why I prefer where she's not immortal. She has a normal human lifespan. Is because it shows the necessity of feminism in her time. Because we live in the 2020s. Why do we need Diana in the 2020s? And what is her role in the current status quo of feminism? That is how I read Wonder Woman usually, which is very strange because most people, they don't really read it Wonder Woman in that way. It's more so her evolution, her powers, and et cetera, et cetera. But I want it to be a reflection of her necessity in the current times of why we need her in for the feminism movement.
Well,
So.
plus, if you're going off of the she only loses it if she gets married. It also, going back to the Clark thing, is like the more like she's like, I'm willing to give up my immortality just to be with you. So that even more is like more on the sacrificial side of Diana, which it's actually kind of cool that way. So now we're gonna go to the actual mythological origin of the Amazons, which is nuts. First off, they are the daughters of Ares, the god of war, which kind of makes sense there. And whether or not they existed as we know them as Amazons is debated, because there were female warriors in ancient times. It's just it was debated if they were like the horse guys from Sarmatia, if they were this group or this group. But the point is, they are the daughters of Ares. And so what happens is, so in the actual Amazon lore, they're not all like bi or gay or anything like that. What they do is that they show up, they don't rape men. This is what Azzarello missed. They don't do that. They mate with men willingly from both sides. They have kids. If the child is a male, they either give them to the father, or I imagine if the father was killed in combat, they probably killed the kid. It's dark. But if the child's a woman, they bring them in and adopt them into the Amazons, and then the whole process continues. And it's kind of crazy, but so here's my thing here. How many of you guys have seen the movie Troy?
Have not. Nope.
All right. That movie annoys me because, so how many of you guys know the story of Troy?
Yeah, a little bit.
Vaguely, yeah.
So I'm going to explain to you the actual story, because the movie simplified it a lot. If you guys want to see a really good depiction of this, there's a series called Troy, The Fall of a City, I think. It's really good. It goes in everything. So I'm going to include like all the mythological elements. So you have this guy named Paris, essentially. He's the lost prince of Troy. So what happens is he's a shepherd, and one day he's tending to his flocks, and he's visited by Zeus, Athena, Aphrodite, and I think Artemis. And then, so Zeus says, I have a challenge for you, fair Paris. Here's a golden apple. Give it to one of these show your favor to one of these goddesses, and they'll give you a reward. Aphrodite says, we'll make you a great general. I forget what Artemis said, but Aphrodite says, if you choose me, I will bring you the woman of your dreams. So what happens is he gives it to Aphrodite. And then he's found by the Trojans, and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's the lost son of Troy. This is great." So they bring him in, and they say, "Okay, so we're going to send you to Sparta because I'm negotiating a peace deal. I want you to go there, learn how to be a diplomat." He meets Helen of Troy. They have their affair. He brings her to Troy. That hence starts the Trojan War. Now, the way the Amazons factor into this is partway through this, the Amazons and the Trojans had an alliance. So the Amazon king, queen, again, I forget her name, but the point is the Amazon queen leads a group of Amazons to fight alongside Troy. So they meet the warrior known as Achilles. Yes, the Achilles heel. And then, so I think her name was, actually, you know what? I'm going to look this up right now because I want to give you guys accurate information because I actually care, unlike the people on Twitter. Troy Amazon Queen. So her name was Penthesilea. So Queen Penthesilea, that's going to be a tongue twister, fights Achilles in single combat, and he gives her a worthy match, and then he ends up killing her, but they fall in love as she's dying. So he goes, maybe in the next life. So then continuing on with the story of Troy, the war goes on for like a decade. Eventually the Trojans are like, screw it, let's retreat. Let's build a wooden horse. We'll retreat our ships, make them think we abandoned. So it will put a small force a small group of soldiers in the Trojan horse. So the Trojans will bring it into their walls. That small force opens the gateway to Troy, and then the city is destroyed, and Paris is killed, and Helen is brought back to Sparta. That's the actual story of Troy, and the way the Amazons relate to it. And wow. I just discovered today there is a video game about this that I want, but it's so hard to find. But the point is, that's the story of Troy as it relates to the Amazons. And the funny thing about the movie Troy, they try to take the more, let's make this realistic. So there's no gods, no Amazons, no anything. We just see Paris. He sleeps with Helen, brings her back. You get the war. You get a truncated version of the war. The Amazons don't show up. You get the horse. The war's over. And I'm like, when I watched the show and learned how much story there is behind this, I'm like, I wasn't as upset with the Wonder Woman thing for Flashpoint because at least this wasn't a character assassination as that was. But I'm like,
See, that's the thing
good
with
Lord.
adaptations is that they want shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty much this whole episode we talked about it, is that the problem with Wonder Woman, and it's kind of like, okay, what we're talking about boils down to, is that all of this is taking shortcuts instead of doing the deep dive of the character and really investing in her story and investing in her lore, whether you know, merge the realism of the Amazons or keep it in a fantastical way. Writers want to just take shortcuts, and that can work for Batman. That can work for Superman, because Superman, he's already watered down. You just think of him as a goofy
A
klutz
big
or whatever,
galoot.
the galoot, and he wears glasses. He works at the Daily Planet, and then he wears the underwear on the outside with the S on his chest, and he flies. He saved Lois off buildings or whatever, being kidnapped, and the day is saved or whatever. Then with Batman, it's basically the same thing. Of his parents died, he dressed up as a bat. He might go chasing Selena on a roof, or having relations with Talia, fighting the Joker, and that's it. And you keep repeating the same story. So when creators say that, like, oh, Superman and Batman are more well known or whatever like that, honestly, you are repeating the same stories with them. That is the only reason why, is because these same stories are being told in different ways, sort of watered down though, in a simplified manner. But with Wonder Woman, because her lore is so complex with the Amazons, and how you are supposed to marry, trying to have the female empowerment, trying to have the feminism, and everything like that going together, that is what they're running away from. And you can't simplify that. You can't simplify feminism. You can't simplify female empowerment, because what women go through is so much more complex within reality. And so trying to write that and understand that and bring that message out, you have to have someone who can truly understand and give respect to that said story.
Now we get to the complicated part of this episode, and that's the Wonder Woman, the Amazons, and the whole bi-queer argument for Wonder Woman. Now, to be clear, this is something that I wanted to establish. So, if people identify with Wonder Woman one way and say, hey, she has it's some stuff in her continuity or past, or the way she alludes is consistent with being bi, being gay, that's totally fine. Just according to official DC, she is straight. Here's how I know that. They make explicit effort not to reference her being bi, according to Jazia Axelrod, and she has been excluded from every single queer book, queer like Pride Month book, where if you notice, Nubia has shown up in and every time that they need like to reference a bi or gay Wonder Woman, they use Nubia. So that's why I think they really do that. So they're like, okay, we can't do Diana, but here's Nubia, which is equally which is very offensive. But the point is, the way DC relates to Diana, and the way DC editorial considers Diana, doesn't matter what the creatives say. DC editorial considers her to be straight by by their actions, at least from what I personally have observed.
So I really want to talk about this one here,
Yeah,
because
go
I
ahead.
personally do see Wonder Woman as being a pansexual character.
That's
And
fine.
it's something that I really want to resonate with the LGBT community, because I think they deserve to have someone who has as big as Wonder Woman to be the face of that for in the comic book world, right? There are many stories, like, you know, there's some here where they talks about the Wonder Woman, the True Amazon, which is my favorite story of all time. Not all time, but like in the past decade with Wonder Woman. Even with the Red Son animated movie there, I think it was powerful the way that she denied Superman. Like, okay, Super Wonder
There's a
shipper.
better way you could have done that.
I am a Super Wonder shipper. Yeah, 100%. But I think it was done elegantly in that movie because of how poorly she was written in the comic. In the comic, she was stripped of her powers after how after Batman, assaulted her basically and choked her, which is
Right.
bad story writing in my opinion. Mark Miller and his creepy obsession with devouring Wonder Woman. He in that.
Trust me. If you know a few of the
Oh,
stories
I
that he
know.
proposed,
I know.
yeah,
Oh, I
exactly.
know. I know. But my thing was, in the book, she was very very dependent on Superman. She was in love with him at one point and saying, "Oh, if only the people knew how much something like that. If only he knew how much I loved you." And it was very like it wasn't explicitly implied, but it was very much like you could tell that she had a big crush on him, and then she hated him because of that. But here in the movie, she hated him because he like she saw how much of a threat he was as a dictator in a sense, right? So that gave her
Yeah.
more agency in
Which
that way.
I understand that they could have been a little less because it was a little, it could have been written better, so it's less like because it's very simplistic when it says, I come from an island of only women, you do the math. So I'm like, yeah, you could have done that a little bit better, but I see it. The way I kind of see with DC JIT is kind of a compromise. I think they intentionally leave it ambiguous. DC's never going to weigh in either way. I think they just leave it up to the individual fan to make that determination.
Yeah, I was gonna mention even the Marston run. You see a lot of bondage with women in Wonder Woman, and then you see also a bit of incest with Hippolyta and Diana
Oh God!
in some panels, and
Really?
it needs to be
What?
it needs to be brought up because when I was reading throughout the first volume, it was Marston's run. It was not in the Robert's run. It was definitely in his run.
Hmm.
You see a lot of that, like she's sitting on Hippolyta's lap, and it's very very sexual. It's not like a mother daughter relationship, like you know what I mean. It's not.
Oh, I think I have seen a panel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'll show you the panels later on Twitter or something, but even with that, like even with the whole "they come from Island of Women," and you know how you say Diana should not be. I don't support like pro shipping or anything like that, but it makes sense for its time. That of that that awkward little
Right.
um
It's just
right. It's very hard to say in words because you don't want to like say the wrong thing and but you guys get what
Are
I'm
you
exactly.
saying.
referring to like my aversion to her sleeping with what amounts to her
With
aunts?
her aunts, yeah, basically
Yeah, because here's the thing. Even the Rebirth, in Rebirth, they went back to she's the only woman.
only
She was
child.
the only baby on the island. So right there, that doesn't work. That it doesn't sit well. And then if you say that's mythologically accurate, that goes back to what we said before about where's the line of mythological accuracy.
Yeah, personally, I'm a person who likes her with Artemis with Bonham McDowell, because I
Mm-hmm.
think with the whole run they had with the challenge of the Amazons and how Artemis died in her hands and how they had it kind of reminds me of in a way of Charles Xavier and Magneto. Even though Charles and Magneto don't have a homosexual relationship, it is you can kind of make it out in a way, through headcanons. That's what I do with Artemis and Diana in the same way. Two
Mm-hmm.
conflicting women,
Okay.
but
That
yeah.
works. Yeah. Again, it's up to the fans' individual interpretation, and you know what? That's totally fine. You can interpret it one way. I could interpret the other way. That's totally that's the way it should be, honestly. But again, with Twitter, any interpretation is not
And
appropriate.
then here's my thing with the cheetah. Oh my gosh, I forget how to say her name. Athleta. I can't say her name for the life of me, but that was my favorite relationship that she had in the True Amazon. But my thing was with the whole thing with Diana and Cheetah, Barbara, Minerva. People forget that Barbara Minerva in Post Crisis was vicious. Like there was
Or
no
like even the new 52 origin, which I believe carried over to a degree, it was established that she corrupted the spirit of the cheetah. It wasn't the other way around.
yeah. And that too, wasn't she the one who helped create genocide in 2006 with the whole?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I'm like, wait, and that story is canon. According to DC, that's canon. So, but again, they'll say, well, the cheetah corrupted her, and I'm like, not according to the other origin.
And then you're also erasing the fact that Etta Candy and Barbara Minerva also cheated. Not cheated. They dated together. So you're if you want Diana and Minerva to be a thing, you're also erasing another lesbian queer relationship with Etta Candy and Barbara Minerva. And Etta Candy is done so dirty throughout the Wonder Woman's lore because she's a female side character, and obviously she has been, rebooted so many times. And if you want to erase that from Etta Candy, then what does Etta Candy do for Diana in the story?
Exactly. So then,
I mean,
so now, oh yeah, go ahead.
oh well, one with Etta, it's crazy that they had her married to Steve for almost 30 years, and that was erased to bring him back as the love interest for Diana, which hasn't worked out. But Etta is pushed to the background, even in the DC um, EU, verse. She was just a sidekick, but she wasn't as important. And Diana didn't even care for her. She only cared for Steve in the live action films. And then you have now her. They changed her to be a black woman, to be a lesbian, but again, she's in the background. And now her relationship with Minerva, you want to take that away from her to give to Diana. That's just treating different characters in such a way because you want a certain status, uh, a certain headcanon or something just doesn't sit well with me. And also, again, you're just fine with the headcanon that you have of Artemis and Diana because if Diana is the same age, if the Amazon is the same age or just that certain
or like
iteration.
within a reasonable age gap.
Yeah, or that certain iteration has that certain connection, it works. But if you are literally just having Diana as the baby of the Amazons, but you want to ship her with who are essentially her aunts or her second mothers, that does not work. And that again is interpretation and why you have to be careful with this certain with shipping in general, or with the bondage, with the LGBTQ representation, because so many people, they sexualize it more, they fetishize it, and it is taking the importance away from it and who is supposed to speak to. Just like John Kent, he is very much even though he was told to be the bisexual Superman, it was a PR stunt. And now his character, that's all he is. And it's kind of, in a sense, it's not giving you that Superman also represents me. It's more so just trying to get PR kudos. That's it.
And that's why DC won't like explicitly say whether or not Wonder Woman's bi or anything like that. Diana, because they don't want to alienate either side, so they're like, just don't say
But the
anything.
thing is, for me, with Wonder Woman, again, to me, she represents every female, there is, no matter your ethnicity, your race, your age, your body size, anything like that. She is supposed to be the embodiment of all women.
Being your true self.
Honestly, her theme song should be "I Am Every Woman," whether you like the Shaka Khan version or the Whitney Houston version. That is her theme as a woman. Um, and again, Mother Earth. And with you taking that away, and even her being a queer icon, Diana is supposed to be. It goes back to sexualization and sexual
Liberation, yes.
liberation. And again, Diana is a free spirit. She is confident in her body, she's confident in her sexuality, and that is how we are supposed to be. We supposed not care what anyone says. I don't care your relationship as long as you have respect for yourself and you have respect for me for my own beliefs or my relationship or something like that.
Which
But we
again,
are supposed
Twitter
to
having respect for people's beliefs. Wow.
exactly. We are all supposed to embrace each other and not judge each other, and that is what Diana represents. So yes,
Exactly.
she is a queer icon. She is this queer character because she is supposed to love. She is, and just as just said, she is pansexual because she loves love. It doesn't matter, you know, who she's with, as long as the within the story it's respected. It isn't a PR stunt. It isn't just to have these weird fanboy fantasies or whatever. It is a story that is told to represent something very powerful, impactful, and important. And as long as you have a story like that for Diana or any character, that is what we want for these characters and for ourselves, and to
Exactly.
be represented in
Now,
a fair manner.
now let me ask you guys this: how do we fix where Wonder Woman and the Amazons go in the DCU? Because first thing I say is give them another big event. Don't do Amazon's attack, obviously, but do it like in a way where everyone has to interact with the Amazons and actually have a point to it, unlike the Tom King run.
You can go first, Jude.
Okay, so my first thing, obviously, when it comes to DC Universe, give her freaking animated series.
Yep.
Yeah, but I feel like we need to move away from the Perez stuff just a bit. It's just because how badly the God of Immortals arc has been adapted in the movies, and
Yeah.
also we need to move away from that. I think it's time we probably start with something with like Down to Earth, like Greg Raka, or even the Gail Simone run, which I have my own like obviously problems with. But there were some good arcs. Like the Circle arc is really good. Rise of Olympian is a really good story arc as well.
Circle is god tier, bro.
Yes, exactly. And then you can also implement all these things and make something original with her animated series, but set her in the present time. Then also keep up the books with I mean obviously it's hard to keep up books with Nubian and Donna Troy and
How about this?
Cassie.
Don't have a book called Nubia and the Justice League where it's just everyone going, "Oh my gosh, Nubia, you're so great!" This was a legit panel. Black Canary going like this, going, "Yes, Queen."
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, "What?" So I checked that out because the premise was Nubia joins the Justice League, and I'm like, "Okay, that's actually a cool concept. I would love to see how she interacts with the other characters." It's just that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, you should bring back Sensation Comics. It makes no sense that Batman gets Detective Comics and Batman. Superman gets Action Comics and Superman, but Wonder Woman only gets Wonder Woman and there's no Sensation Comics for her.
That's true. Since you could do it the way Action and Detective do it, where Sensation is more about the Wonder family and the Amazons, and Wonder Woman is about Diana.
Yes, exactly. That's my two biggest wants for.
How about you, Britt?
Okay, so of course, an animated show, and going back to just everything, all collective and live action. Even with the problems of DCEU, Wonder Woman still was the most successful out of everything.
Aquaman
Yes,
was
Aquaman.
more in terms of
I was gonna
money.
say
Was Aquaman?
Really, the only reason why Aquaman was because of the China
Yeah, that's true.
box office. So I really wouldn't just say straightforward that Aquaman was like the top success because his character still did not quite have the impact that Wonder Woman was a global phenomenon, though.
Yeah, it was.
She, and she pretty much saved the DCEU with the first movie. Again, my problem is that it was more so trying to gear towards her a love story, just an obsession with Steve. But at the same time, Diana herself as a character still, rose in popularity. You had the Halloween co- um, costumes, being like the top five or whatever for women. You had the cosplayers, even though Wonder Woman cosplay has been forever, but it was skyrocketed, and just people really took her. The general audience took her character more seriously and wanted more material and content for her. An animated
Now,
series.
if the game comes out and the game is big, that's the other thing where I think the game could do to Wonder Woman what the 2017 movie did.
Right. And then you have animation. She needs a series that really establishes her supporting cast. Now, Steve, again, you can kill him off or make him old. I don't care for him as a
Or
love
put him
interest.
with Lois. They can be together in Irrelevance.
Funny. But really, I would want the animated series to be female based. Like the her female supporting cast needs to be emphasized on, again, because Wonder Woman is the female character of female empowerment and of feminism. You need to show that a little bit more, and we definitely need that with women who want representation, and it's
But do it
not
in a way
just
that it doesn't come out as, like,
man hating.
for lack of a
Yeah,
better term, woke, because otherwise you're just going to turn off the audience.
right. We
But I mean, like,
want
we live in the age of Harley Quinn, the animated series, and we all know how that's turning out with the not wokeness, but the political correctness of that show, right? And we
right.
see that. So
Yeah,
No,
and
but
and
but my point is in terms of, like, yeah, you should have episodes where you address in the Wonder Woman show about feminism, but don't do it the way Captain Marvel did it, because that turned off a lot of people. They were like, ah,
yeah,
screw this movie, myself included.
right. It's just that, like I said, you have to have the balance and you have to have the respect. It's not just women are good, men are bad. It's not that. It's about equality and respect of the sexes. That is what feminism really is. And I think so many people just kind of like forget the basic definition of what that is. Um, and also, you already said video game and live action. Um, and with comic books, yes, she needs a second book. And again, emphasizing on her supporting cast, the Amazons. I'm pretty sure that if you have Sensation Comics and you um basically emphasize on the Amazons and introduce different Amazons, the and how they work. I mean, Diana, I'm going back to 170 because she was interested in science. And I think that in some iterations, I think Marston, or it was one iteration of the Amazons, um, they, well, that was Earth One, I think, too. But they had science and very much advanced with technology. Um, and in a sense, I would say how the MCU did Wakanda,
Hmm.
of how it was a sacred place, and but it had its own advanced technology. It was vibrant. It was all about culture and stuff like that. And if you emphasize that with the Amazon, especially because the Amazons are supposed to be multicultural, you can really, like I said, speak to a varied audience. And yeah, pretty much just do that. If you go with the MCU, how they portrayed Wakanda, honestly, I don't think you can't go wrong with that for the Amazons.
here,
Yeah,
But
here's the thing with the the science and the Amazons. That was actually really hardcore in Marston's run, where the Amazons had advanced technology. They had the purple healing ray. They had all these
yeah,
devices that could heal, and
they
it was.
also had a purple death ray.
But then with Perez's run, that was all taken away, and
taken
it was
away.
yes. And I think that's Perez did a great job with that run, but I think in the long run, it did cause a lot of damage, but it made the Amazons look very barbaric, made them look very like left behind in the past. When that was never the case, they were always ahead of the time. But
And I
it just
think
got
I
yeah.
think the reason why is because they wanted to have Diana, be this fish out of water when she comes to the outside world and how advanced the outside world is. But no, and she's supposed to be kind of like frightened or so, I guess, excited and just amazed at the outside world. And yeah, the outside world is fine, but it again, it's the same thing with um you can have the Amazon still within their own culture and advanced, and Diana is still just as excited to be in the outside world. It doesn't have to be where the Amazons are stripped of their science, of their intelligent, advanced intelligence, just to make the outside world seem something so grand and big. Um,
Yeah.
the
So
same thing with
Mhm.
Clark from Krypton. Krypton is supposed to be advanced and with the sci-fi stuff, but he is dumbed down, and that is forgotten that he is the son of a scientist to be so engulfed in Smallville or Metropolis and stuff like that. So yeah, just as
yeah,
Jid said, Perez run is the pretty much the golden standard, but stripping the advanced technology away, that did kind of like open the door of now the Amazons are just seem like these barbaric or women who live in basically caveman times.
exactly.
Um,
They were trying to weigh in on the Greek myth, like part of it, so I kind of get what they're going for. For me, what I say, what you need to do is have more like of the mainstream media Wonder Woman, which is the game, which is the movie. Really, here's the thing. My problem with the Paradise Lost show is that so you have a Superman project, a Batman project. You have to have one that's specifically identified as Wonder Woman. You can't just say Paradise Lost because no one's gonna know what that is. You got to say Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, so people think you're putting out Wonder Woman content. Number one, and number two, what you got to do is assign writer. Don't like force Wonder Woman on writers. Essentially give so essentially let the writer find someone that wants to write Wonder Woman because I was thinking about
right,
George Perez. No one wanted to write Wonder Woman. He wanted to write Wonder Woman, and we got one of the best runs from it because he loved the character. Then what you gotta do is, to a certain degree, I mean, you gotta either put her with a love interest that's not Steve, or just don't have any love interest. Who said a character has to have a love interest? Because honestly, here's the thing: Steve does not work in the Wonder Woman world because he's just a guy. He's just a soldier. Okay, what's he gonna do against Ares or anything like that? He can't. He is of zero help, and we're seeing that in the Tom King run. But now let me ask you guys this before we wrap up because we're about at 3 hours. Hey, nice job.
Jeez.
Um, what are your favorite versions of the Amazons? And let's get some story recommendations. I'll start with Jid. Go ahead, dude.
Okay, so I would have to say all these three are perfect in the screen right here. The True
Mhm.
Amazon is my favorite. It's
I
just
love that
because
one.
it's just because it's such a different version of Diana because you
Mhm.
expect her to be noble and kind and compassionate and very, very sacrificial. But in this story, like it's the complete opposite. She is such a jerk. She
Spoiled
demands every
princess.
she's a spoiled brat. Such a great, interesting take on her. And then for her to impress Athletia and then not have the feelings coming back to her, and that kills her, right? And that kills Athletia during the competition. Or not the competition, the whole monsters being attacking her.
Mhm.
And then she has to wear Athletia's costume or her armor when she goes into man's world. That's such a great interpretation or different interpretation of the character, I think.
With me, it's either probably a Paradise Lost, Paradise Found. Those are great. Superman Wonder Woman power couple by Charles Sewell, because here's what Charles did really well. He gave equal time to Superman and Wonder Woman, and you got some great character development of Diana. You get to hear a little bit about how she doesn't really relate to she. You see her conflict with Clark, because Clark is very closed off because obviously where he grew up, and she's very open. So you kind of see the give and take they have in the relationship. So, and then as for my third pick, I would honestly go with probably I got Wonder Woman: The Just War. What's cool about that is like, so Ares shows up and he goes, "Oh, I want to be a hero now, like you, Wonder Woman." So Wonder Woman has to teach Ares to be a hero, like Ares taught her how to be a warrior back in the past, even though it turns out it's a plot by Ares. But the point is, it's a really cool concept. How about you, Britt?
Okay, so all three of those on the screen. Also, Superman and Wonder Woman, because of the fact of, yeah, Diana, she's much more mature, showing that she's not defined by a relationship, that she's still very much independent. Even if the book is about a relationship, you still see, like you said, her being the open, free spirit, teaching Clark how to be more open and accepting of himself as an alien instead of just closed off and reserved and scared of who he is. Um, Also, Immortal Wonder Woman, because
Oh
again,
yes.
it's the fact of Diana, she rebirths the universe,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to see her at the very end be the hero that she is supposed to be. That her mission was to protect the world, was to try to keep, you know, just everything together. And they did. At the bitter end of everything, she got to see, even if the confliction of her being alone and understanding her fate as, why am I immortal? And what am I supposed to do with that? Like, everyone that I know is gone. I'm alone. But then when at the last second she understands, no, my purpose is to basically force the story to keep going, and it's never ending. And when she does that and become like the ending where she becomes like the constellation
Mm-hmm.
in the sky, it was just so beautifully drawn. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I
That
love
Bartel.
in stories, we need more of that. Stories that really show Diana's impact, that's so universal. If you want her to be a goddess, if you want her to be um yeah, just pretty much this goddess, show her as, like, not the icon, not the one that they try to say she's above humanity. She is ingrained within humanity and loves to just be with so many people, and show her exploring the world. Show her, even if she can, breathe in space, they go back and forth with that.
Mm-hmm.
But show her being on different planets too. And being a UN ambassador, they really need to bring that back, because I feel like that is her place, to be the voice of, you know, just the different cultures. And also going back to the science and the mythical and magical thing, with the gods and everything, marry that all together. Have the Amazons be not only advanced with technology and science, but also the magic part, with the lasso, with their swords and everything like that. Just make it, marry the realism with the fantastical, and you have a great story about a woman who is, still very much grounded within the world and culture, but also she is a, this grand symbolism um, of what Marston said, Superman and Wonder Woman but of course mostly Wonder Woman, is supposed to be this, in a sense, just like this symbol for children to aspire to be, even though we can't fly, we
Mhm.
can't use a lasso or anything like that, but as just an escape from the harshness, of the real world. We can just put ourselves in that feel of some comfort, you know. And Wonder Woman gives that. She gives that comfort, and that just, it's okay to be who you are and accept it and be confident. And yeah, we just need more of that.
Hence, which is why the Superman and Wonder Woman book is so well. So anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. This was a very packed episode, but Jid, thanks for hanging out with us for the full 3 hours.
Thank you for having me.
And anytime. So, Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease us with?
Yes, of course, of course. So I am finished with the Hera and Alita one shot. Finally, I will be sending that on in a few, Jared. Um, it's honestly, I love Hera, and she's going to be in more stories with Austria, and having like this grandmother mentor type relationship with her as she grows older. And also we have Shelter chapter 2, the Athens story with Donna. A few more editing and that will be uploaded as well. But Jid, um I will be uploading more on fan fiction than the archive because the that what you said about archive kind of like threw me off. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I'll definitely have it more so on fanfiction.net instead. Um and yeah, one shots and everything like that will be finishing up and uploading, and I can't wait to get to our other stories within the Shelterverse. Jared has gained a lot of points
Oh, I'm about to gain
with
a lot more too.
yeah, with his with talking about the spin-offs and everything of that. So I'm very excited for us to share that with all of our people. And also I just want to say thank you for all the support for the Instagram as well, because we are continuing on to gain followers, and despite any detractors, naysayers, or whatever, just the fact of the continued growth of this community and trying to stay positive and welcoming and stuff like that. And Jid, having you on the show today, it
Pleasure, man.
it was yeah, definitely a pleasure, and would love to have more episodes of you being on.
Oh my goodness, you guys are gonna make me cry right now. So just stop.
I'm the expert at making Britt cry. Trust me, I'm the subject matter expert, sir.
No, it is truly my pleasure, and if anything, I can help you guys just not get as much as the hate or death threats, and that's why
That's right. Direct it all at Jid. Direct all the hate at Jid.
excuse me, but you see, like my tweets, like they're always in humor. And I always take off the situation, and I always change the subject with them because they're not worth arguing. They're not.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly. And
And
Jid,
just that attitude, we love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Let the people know one more time where everyone can find you.
okay, so my @ is Batman's wife. It's spelled a bit weird, so it's BATMANS WLFE because I didn't get the whole WI, so it'll be WLFE.
Okay. And all that will be in the description below. But all right, everyone, stay heroic. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame. She belongs to General Zod, Zois, and Maxabat for life. See you later.